Хочешь посмотреть эксклюзивный и очень горячий контент 18+ по Наруто? Тогда заходи на мой Бусти. Ссылка в описании, и приятного просмотра хента.
The Shinobi Empire is thriving. Peace reigns among people whose bodies are filled with chakra. More and more diverse techniques and tricks are being created, but deception is also increasing. The desire to become stronger and more powerful. Barbarians are poisoning villages, robbing sacred places filled with ancestral scrolls. And this is now the main problem that must be exterminated by our joint efforts. Several hidden villages are currently cooperating, but, still, the situation between them is unstable. They do not fully trust each other. This has been clear since I was born. I am Sasori of the Red Sand, having served the puppeteer squad in my home village for many years. Now occupying a high position, I have decided to resign after 8 years. This decision was not easy for me, and even more so for my colleagues and the Kazekage. They were indignant that I, gifted since childhood with a power beyond the control of many mature individuals, now expressed a desire to train young ninja. I decided to become a mentor. Raza, the 4th Kazekage, was close to me. You could say we studied ninjutsu together. He accepted my decision and made me a mentor to one outstanding trio, Temari, Kankuro, and Gaara, his own children. Answer me, Sasori, the 4th one spoke up. You're a little younger than me, but you still haven't found the meaning of your life? He glanced thoughtfully in my direction. Does it even exist? I crossed my arms over my chest and threw my head back, peering into the sky above. Huh? Of course there is. He flashed his gaze. For me, this is the well-being of my family and the village as a whole. I know, turning his gaze to the elder, your wife's love for you is boundless, which is why you smile all the time. A genuinely pleasant chuckle followed in response. The man smiled again, slightly covering his mouth with his hand. How I wish, Sasori, that you too could experience the feeling of love. These words managed to change my face, which had been expressionless until that moment. It became both funny and sad at the same time. I agreed with the words of the elder, nodding my head demonstratively for some reason. It just so happens that I am practically emotionless towards the opposite sex. Of course, since my youth I have looked at someone, even dated, but it all came to naught. By my early 30s, true love had not happened. Perhaps this is what haunts my heart, which so longed to see a sparkle in the eyes of another person. But despite my cold heart, I still felt awe towards the people. I loved them no less than the Kazekage. The position I had held in the village for the last few years was precisely to protect our home from outsiders and preserve the lives of the locals. What could be better? Better. I began to realize that I wanted to help my people in a slightly different way. I wanted to teach the kids what I knew with all my heart. And then there would be more outstanding shinobi in the village who would one day ascend to the throne of the leader after the 4th Kazekage. Is this really my purpose in life? I have known my students since they were born. Temari is the eldest of the children, very similar in appearance to her mother Karura, but courageous like her father. Kankuro is a copy of the 4th in appearance, but he is the only one of the 3 who has the ability to puppeteer, like me. Teaching him is probably the easiest for me. And Gaara is the youngest, but undoubtedly a very strong leader, protecting others with his sand and at the same time attacking the enemy without much effort. This is the makings of a champion. Perhaps Gaara will one day become the next leader. This thought came to me even when a 5-year-old boy with bright blood-colored hair stood in front of me. It had been a while since I had started training children. The annual Genin exam was approaching, which would take place this time in Hidden Leaf. Temari and Kankuro were ready, but my father doubted whether Gaara would be able to take part. I assured him that the younger one had long been ready to prove his right to increase his rank. He was only 13, but his chakra power was so great that it was similar in strength to his father's chakra. I had no doubt about it. I'm very worried, Temari said, nervously fiddling with the fan that rested on her lap. Sasori-san, why is everything happening so fast? Will I even be able to show my strength before I get killed? I've never left the village before. What should I do with this worry? She mumbled, burying her face in her palms. Just as I was about to raise my voice, approaching the girl, her brother's chestnut-colored hair appeared from the corner. She's gone soft, huh? Oh my, Faha. Kankuro said in a cheerful tone. What are you talking about? She immediately jumped up from her seat and rushed towards the door. I'll show you who'll go soft in a second. Temari, stop, I finally said, grabbing the girl's furious little body with one movement of the threads and turning it in my direction. You can handle any task, I believe in you. The flaming face opposite her transformed into a smile, as if these words had helped her calm down. How she reminded her of her father in his youth. He also boiled like a kettle in a second and cooled down just as quickly. The journey lasted about 2 days before arriving at the Hidden Leaf Village. As befits a mentor, I went with the younger ones. I was silent almost the entire time, only watching from the side as the two of them beat each other up, teasing and making funny faces. The red-haired one, looking at this, only sighed heavily, making it clear that he was tired of watching the pranksters and that they should shut their mouths already, mentally preparing themselves for the subsequent trials. Changing from a run to a leisurely walk, I rushed forward to lead the group towards the necessary place. The children fell silent, looking with interest at the crowded streets of the village. I was looking only forward all this time, when I heard whispers behind my back. Kankuro was telling his sister how the locals looked at us. In particular, he mentioned me. Surprised, I looked back and looked into dark eyes that burned into me with caution. Kankuro turned away, but I was not going to retreat. What, was all that came out of my mouth? That's... Sasori-san, they were staring at you there, pointing towards the tree behind which someone was hiding. I didn't have time to make out, but it was definitely a girl with shoulder-length red hair. I chuckled unnoticed, immediately distracted by the main action and trudged on. That's not surprising, Temari's voice was heard after a few steps, having already stopped whispering. It's not surprising at all that girls are watching our teacher. She briskly walked forward and began to walk with me at the same level with her nose upturned. No matter how many guys I see, I've never met anyone more handsome than our Sasori-san. Damn it. Kankuro cursed, what about me? I'm the cutest one here. The only thing more beautiful than Sasuke Uchiha is Itachi Uchiha, someone shouted from the side. Our whole team turned to the source of the sound. The girl standing not far from us had pale eyes and long light hair pulled into a ponytail. She straightened up proudly and was about to walk past us, adjusting the purple fabric of her clothes, but when she looked at my students and finally looked into my eyes, she immediately disappeared, hiding her rosy cheeks. That's it. Temari shouted after her, triumphantly striding after me. Ino, where have you been? Hurry up. Barked the guy, whose appearance reminded me of the ancient Nara clan. He lazily ran up to the object of my recent surprise. Yes, that girl managed to cheer me up with her look. I didn't show it, of course. Temari, and the one with the ponytail is looking at you. Kankuro didn't let up, laughing sarcastically in his sister's direction and, as if according to a memorized script, getting hit on the head. Oh, kids. Since I started spending more time with teenagers, my soul has really become lighter. I must be getting old, since I am entertained by the company of these young men. And I didn't notice how I stopped hiding my satisfied grin. We entered a large building with very high ceilings. Here, the recount of all the participants of the exam will take place. A local shinobi immediately approached us with a list in his hand to mark the newcomers from the sand, after which he loudly called all the children gathered to follow him. Among this crowd, I saw many interesting individuals from a variety of clans. Some of them, with expressionless faces, walked leisurely after the mentor, while others were very nervous. Get away from me, thick-browed. A girl with cute pink hair screamed, quickly darting past me, brushing against the fabric of my uniform. I watched her go when my attention was drawn to the boy walking next to her, his hands in his pockets. Is this Itachi's little brother? Good afternoon, a male voice addressed me. Good day, he said, turning towards the sound. Do you remember me, Sasori-san? The young man asked, smiling slightly, while adjusting his low ponytail. Uchiha Itachi, he responded, shaking his old friend's hand. Memories floated in his mind when he looked into the black eyes opposite him. I had known this man for several years. We had crossed paths once during my mission in Hidden Leaf. We spent almost a whole week in the same company of shinobi. He was a very smart kid, I thought then. It was interesting to chat with him about the mission, learning more and more about the Uchiha clan along the way. Today, ninja with Sharingans are among the most powerful shinobi, which certainly pleases me as a fan of learning about techniques that are not available to everyone. Itachi and I went out into the fresh air and talked briefly to each other, sharing the latest news. As I thought, Itachi's younger brother was currently taking part in the exam that was about to begin. We had to hurry. We quickly darted to the corridor, which had been empty for several minutes. The boys were assigned to different rooms, in which, in addition to the teenagers, there were several mentors and observers. I was invited to be one of the last, so as not to allow cheating during the first stage of the exam, testing. Having entered the office, I took my place near the window and looked around with interest at those present. I recognized the girl Ino, her partner, the pink-haired girl, Uchiha Jr., all three of my students, and so on, in the crowd of onlookers. It warmed my soul to see with my own eyes how my guys were raising their personal rank. And I didn't think that I would end up in this room today. I barely listened to the words spoken by the main man at this stage, who firmly and sharply spoke about some rules, prohibitions, violations. "So, I hope everyone understands?" said the same man, falling silent for a few seconds. "Now let's move on to the next one. The words are already about the observers. And I am among them." For some reason, the name of each of us was announced. Moreover, our rank and merits were announced. Most likely, this was said in order to scare the kids even more. I chuckled, slightly lowering my head. Why turn this damn test into a horror quest? "And I hope you know the name of the chief examiner of today's test," the ninja continued, pointing his palm to the side. There was an empty workspace behind him. "And I thought he was the boss here," one of the children whispered. I looked down at the empty chair. The same question immediately came to mind. The door to the classroom swung open and closed just as quickly, as if deafening the ears of the puzzled people. They stared with open mouths at the man who confidently stomped to the lonely workplace opposite the students. "Ah, here you are," the man said, slightly lowering his tone to a calmer one. "Ahem, so, the examiner for today's test is Tsukuri Deidara, the chief demolitionist from the Hidden Stone." What? Did I hear right? Is this what the main demolitionist is like? I've heard a lot about Tsukuri, but I've never seen him in real life. It turned out that this man was apparently very young and very handsome. The sunlight, illuminating the room, covered his long blonde hair with a golden tint, and the slightly loose fabric of his green clothes seemed almost silk, shimmering in the bright rays and hugging the lines of his slender body. Until the end, I did not believe that the person in front of me was a handsome man. And not a girl with a confident look. But the look, it seemed to illuminate the room even more when blue eyes like the sky looked in my direction. He did not look at me, but was close. It seemed that if my gaze crossed his, I would look stupid, but for some reason I didn't care. I forgot how to breathe for a few seconds, while the young guy walked to his desk, holding a stack of papers with questions in his hands. He bowed slightly in greeting, handed the assignments to the man and immediately sat down in his place, resting his elbows on the wooden surface of the table. I wasn't the only one surprised by what was happening. It seemed that no one present had ever met Deidara before. They looked at him with interest, lazily crossing his legs and relaxing in his chair without much interest. "Oh ho," someone next to me said. It was a shinobi from the Leaf whose chair was not far from mine. He was whispering to his comrade, a fellow observer, his eyes brazenly running over the examiner's body. "Is Milaha really that good at ninjutsu? I wish I could take his test too," the second one giggled in a whisper, causing me, unable to control my emotions, to turn my head to the two pranksters and give them a murderous look. Why did I do that? Where did my composure go? Pfft, whatever, the main thing is that these guys shut up right away. The man threw a sheet of paper in front of everyone in one fell swoop and left the room, wishing everyone a successful exam. Tsukuri picked up one of the same sheets of paper that remained on his desk and began to study the contents. The exam began. Sorry, the same guy who was sitting next to me broke the silence. Deidara glanced at him, fluttering his light eyelashes. "Aren't you going to watch the children?" he said, his voice shaking slightly. Well, the blonde clicked his tongue, rolled his eyes, no longer turning in that direction, and again peered at the printed lines. "And why are you sitting here? Maybe you should do your own thing?" Stop staring at me." Deidara blurted out, throwing something gray and round right into the guy's face, causing him to cross the office boundary like an explosive lightning bolt towards the street right through the window that had opened in front of him. The eyes of those gathered grew even larger. All attention flowed to the empty seat next to me and the boy who had risen from his chair. The latter sat back down with a tired sigh. That's what will happen to anyone who gets caught cheating and, looking around at the attention of the elders in the audience, staring. Nervously watching the observers who were looking away from him, Deidara quietly looked into everyone's eyes until it was my turn. Our eyes met for the first time. I think I heard my heartbeat, especially when the young man stopped on my face, after which he quickly lowered his eyes to the table, not raising them for a long time. A strange look, a strange expression that enveloped the fair-haired man's sweet face. I thought about it for about 20 minutes, closely watching the teenager's actions. I still couldn't bring myself to look into his eyes again. Maybe because I would end up thrown out the window in the same way, or maybe because I was endlessly trying to analyze his actions. This action went unnoticed by the others, but for me, for some reason it remained very important. Did I really like this man? Time passed. Students slowly approached Deidara with written answers on their sheets, accompanied by adults. The boy read carefully, then looked at the teenager's face and smiled sweetly, nodding. Inspired students with the same friendly smile left the exam. I could not help but look at him at that moment. It seemed that what happened at the beginning of the test was not reality. Now Deidara looked like a cute kitten, caringly bestowing a smile on everyone who approached him. I wanted to be in the place of these children. In the place of each one, to see this look on myself. There were fewer and fewer people left. Almost everyone had already handed in their work and left the room. Some observers were leaving the place with them. As Deidara explained, why should 8 people watch the 6 remaining? It was stressful. I agreed. The adults gradually left until I realized that there were only 3 people left in the room. The only child, watching the second to last one, was even more frightened. The door closed and now it seemed that his little heart would burst from his chest. The little boy, nervously dropping the pencil from his hand, darted straight towards Deidara's desk. He hesitated even more, looking with horror as the examiner, getting up from his chair, came up and picked up the pencil, after which he slowly moved towards the youngest. "Sorry," the latter whispered, taking his thing back. His dark eyes dropped to the paper. "You were one of the first to answer all the questions," the chief said quietly and at the same time calmly, running his eyes over the written lines. "Why didn't you come to me?" "Huh?" Again raising his almost tearful big eyes. "You're a good boy," Deidara said, feigning a smile again. He rested his elbows on the surface of the desk, studying the writing a little closer. Me? You passed. You can go free," the examiner confirmed, standing up to his full height, after which he ruffled the fragile shinobi's hair. This sweetest picture brought 1,000 questions to my mind that I wanted to ask Tsukuri. With each passing minute, I wanted to get up from my seat and go up to the boy. I wanted to feel him closer to me. Finally, this chance came. I stood up, feeling satisfied when my legs carried me towards the student who was collecting pencils from the table. The 2 of us walked towards the exit. I opened the door, inviting the boy to go out first, when I heard my name behind me. The name pronounced by that same voice. Turning around in confusion, I saw a silhouette approaching the wide window opposite me. And I hadn't noticed how long the examiner's hair was, that he was leisurely leaning his palms on the windowsill. He was looking through the window at everything he saw. Crowded streets filled the landscape, brightly lit by the sun. Now there were only 2 left in the audience. I closed the door after the last child came out and now I couldn't tear my eyes away from the object of my fascination. Now I walked straight up to him. Right behind his back. He was shorter and now no different from the girl. I was probably overdoing it, focusing my attention on the blonde's appearance, but it didn't give me peace. I wanted to turn him towards me, to look him in the eyes again. That was the most I wanted at that moment. "Your students from the hidden sand did very well," Deidara's voice sounded, breaking the idyll of silence. Now he turned sideways to me, but still peered into the distance outside the window. "Everyone tried," I squeezed out, piercing the top of the guy's head with my gaze. "Today would have been a great day if it weren't for that faggot." I raised an involuntary eyebrow, glad the examiner hadn't seen it. And this guy never ceases to amaze. Suddenly he turns and looks me straight in the eye, lifting his head slightly. He probably didn't expect me to come too close. I was chosen to be the main one for this test for a reason. Still, it's no small responsibility. After all, this is an exam for a genin. I apologize for my behavior today. I don't often find myself in the company of people, especially such shameless ones. You can call me by the informal you, the blonde interrupted, pushing the strands of hair back that were in the way. I'm not much different from the other participants in the exam. There are 13-year-olds here, and 17-year-olds. And I'm 16. So address me accordingly. Akasuna. The last thing came out of the boy's mouth quietly, almost inaudibly. I focused on the graceful movement of his lips, noticing that the younger one seemed to have blushed a little. Only 16, and to have so many merits. I heard about Tsukuri a few years ago. He is really good at his craft. It is clearly visible from his chakra. It is huge. It is filled to the maximum. Very interesting. Why you? I'm sorry again. He lowered his gaze somewhere to the area of his buckling knees. I can't control myself when things like this happen. Why is he apologizing? And why to me? No need, I snapped, coming a little closer to his flushed face and gently touching his trembling shoulder. It was probably unnecessary, but it was too late to retreat. He deserved it. What I said excited the younger one genuinely strongly. He looked into my eyes and smiled. Warmly. Again, he reminded me of a small kitten, ready to surrender to my embrace. I resolutely retreated, afraid that I would do something wrong again. I probably shouldn't have kept you here, my interlocutor blurted out sharply. I have students from Cayman taking a test in the next room. I'll go check on them. Before I could come to my senses, a fragile figure opened the door and, looking at me, nodded in farewell, after which I was left alone with my thoughts and the emotions that had awakened deep inside me. I swear to my mind that I had truly fallen in love. Tsukuri's POV. Ever since I found myself in a strange village, all I do is get mad. As soon as I cross the border, I constantly feel stares. Come on. I'm not a girl of easy virtue to have my body parts looked at. Hiding from their gaze, I walked to the designated exam location in the guise of one of my locals. I pretended to be an ordinary middle-aged ninja, without telling my people who were traveling the distance with me, namely, 3 14-year-old girls accompanied by a mature shinobi, who was also a friend of the Tsukuri family. She knows very well that when I'm angry, I usually take the form of another person, diverting attention. But she, like everyone else, has no idea what hides my nasty character towards men. Of course, it's not hard to guess from my appearance what attracts my sex to me, but it excites my mind so much that I want to blow myself up. I don't accept my appearance. I'm almost 17 years old, but I'm noticeably different from the guys my age. I'm about 165 centimeters tall, have delicate facial features and big eyes. How can I not mention the length of my hair? Well, I like it long. I'm used to walking like that. Phew, easy, easy. Holding my chest, I leaned against the concrete wall of the corridor, into which I quickly ran after meeting the legendary Akasuna. I knew in advance the name of every mentor who would arrive here that day. And I did not expect to see his name among the large list. Rumors said that he would become the next head of his village. All because he has a great talent as a puppeteer, eclipsing the previous bright names. And when I found out that this man would arrive as an ordinary teacher, I simply did not believe it. It cannot be that such a shinobi is engaged in training recruits. In any case, I happened to see him among the eyes of observers. When I realized that he was looking straight into my eyes, for some reason I felt uneasy. For some reason? I almost gave birth, sensing the enormous chakra through his seemingly glassy eyes. This guy, I know, is twice my age, but he looked as if he was frozen in a 20-year-old body. Very young and attractive. Senpai. I heard from the opposite end of the corridor. I hurried to meet the excited girls, who simultaneously left the confines of their office all three. The girls announced loudly and cheerfully that they had passed the first stage, which brought a smile to my face. I, still blushing to the limit, was unable to dodge the subsequent question related to my condition, but I was not going to tell them that Sasori-san made me blush just by his appearance. I had to lie, which I did skillfully quite often. "Well, shall we go get a bite to eat?" I asked, coming to my senses a little. Hearing an affirmative answer, I led the younger ones towards the exit. We ate our fill at a local cafe, talking about all sorts of nonsense. I came up with more and more jokes, causing cheerful female laughter. I really enjoyed spending time surrounded by girls. I felt comfortable around them, as they did around me. After all, we grew up in the same yard. It happened, when I was still a boy, I wandered around my native streets with them in search of adventures on the ass. Those were fun times. Now, sitting on a bench in the park, the wind blew quite strongly. I wonder if it was because of that girl with a big fan on her back. Probably yes, because she was chasing her brother named Kankuro. Temari, Kankuro. I remember the three standing not far from us very well. They are very strong and apparently very self-confident. Students of Sasori Akasuna himself. Stop. I'm thinking about him again. I patted my head and felt pain. It turned out that my hair, due to the force of the wind, was pulled to the surface of the tree and got a little tangled, ruining my high ponytail. God, to untangle again. Daidara-kun, can I do your hair? The 14-year-old immediately jumped up from her seat and began rummaging through her pink purse, I know, in search of a comb. When did my refusal stop you? I said plaintively, turning slightly sideways on the edge of the bench. These words made my three laugh again. Please, just make it so that you don't get caught on every branch along the way. It will be done. After a while, I touched my hair and found that my hair was now in a lazy bun, with short strands hanging down my temples. What's wrong, Daidara-kun? Why didn't you tighten it more? Well, it's much prettier this way. One of our, with the hairstylist, observers chimed in. I bit my lip with displeasure, peering into the reflection of the mirror provided to me. Okay, the main thing is that it doesn't interfere. The girls screamed with my approval, after which we began to walk in the opposite direction, because we needed to find our local mentor, who had gotten lost somewhere before the exam began. Oh, there she is, shouted one of the companions, calling over to us a woman who was chatting with someone. You go and tell her about your successes. And you? Aren't you coming with us? I still have some things to do in the exam room, I replied, already turning in the other direction, when I almost bumped into someone tall, standing a couple of centimeters away from me. Girls, have you seen the younger Uchiha here? I know that he also took the exam with you today, said a very attractive brunette with eyes as dark as darkness itself. His gaze stopped on my face, waiting to hear an answer. I know that he was talking about Sasuke, and at the same time it is very strange to see a guy who looks so much like this Uchiha. Probably a relative. No, the girls didn't see him, I barked, immediately going around the tall man's body and hiding from the eyes of those who heard my voice. I sensed that this guy was also looking at my body as it walked away towards the building. I once happened to meet one of the Uchiha clan. It was a year ago, when I was doing sculpting sitting in my little room, called a workshop. Of course, I could create a clay bird, a spider, and so on in a second, but I have loved the sculpting process since birth. I love creating sculptures of both animals and people. I also love painting frozen works. That's how creative I am, it turns out. Due to constant being in a closed space, my slightly tanned skin since birth now looked almost snow white. I closed myself off from the world, from people, from views for a long time. Perhaps this is what causes some problems in communicating with people. I am quite rude and straightforward. And all because I don't like it when I hear something from guys about feminine appearance. Oh, I'll grow up a little more and mature, like the rest. With this attitude, for the first time in a long time, I broke out on a mission from my village. Sitting in my secluded place, I was filling up with clay supplies, when the calm solitude was replaced by something else. I heard footsteps behind me. And it was Itachi Uchiha. The next minute I heard him say that I would have to complete today's task together with this guy. Ugh, what a day it was. However, I even enjoyed working with the brunette. He was calm, focused and didn't ask unnecessary questions. In general, I was lucky then. Sitting with the other examiners at a large table, I listened to the latest news about what would happen in the second stage. It was a task in the forest, where you have to fight for scrolls. An interesting activity, perhaps, but I could not participate in this as one of the examiners, because this was the end of my participation in the exam. However, when I was about to leave, I was told that I had to stay until all the tasks were completed by the teenagers. This would take some time. It turns out I'm stuck in Hidden Leaves for about a week. It's not fun, but I'm being put up in a special guest house today, where absolutely everyone from the visitors will be spending the night. That means I'll have another chance to see Akasuna. Great. Without hiding my satisfied grimace, I followed the local Hataki, who was leading me and the other examiners to our place of lodging. For such people as me, separate rooms were allocated on the upper floor, while the places below were filled with students who would live 3 to a room, as the children themselves wanted, so as not to be separated from their native comrades. Prudent. I was messing around in my girls' room from the stone until late in the evening. They spent most of their time discussing new acquaintances and openly giggling when they learned that their mentor was most likely planning a date with one of the examiners today. It was fun to listen and laugh about it, although we all understood how beautiful our shinobi was. And having gotten to know her wonderful character better and heard her cheerful laugh, anyone could fall in love with her, even me. This thought consoled me as a young guy, but it was at that moment that I thought about the fact that I had never fallen in love in my life. Of course, I liked the company of girls and I spent my entire childhood surrounded by little beauties, but I had not yet managed to feel the state of being in love with at least one of them. And today, looking around at many students my age, I did not focus on anyone, to remember someone's eyes that were special to me. No one, except Akasuna's eyes. Only he managed to disturb my heart. Funny and strange at the same time. It was almost 9 o'clock in the evening. I was pretty tired after today's emotions. I wanted to go to my room and lie down quietly, not saying another word. Leaving my younger ninja's room, I slowly walked down the hallway, stopping a little when I passed the windows. It was still light, but the sun was gone. And Konoha has a pretty beautiful sunset. I wonder what it would look like in my room, on the top floor. Hello, someone's voice behind me. I stopped in the doorway of the stairs and for some reason reluctantly turned around, as I had already heard this voice today. Ah, it's you, I drawled just as lazily as my eyes scanned the pale guy from head to toe in a second. What do you want, Uchiha? I was hoping for a better greeting, the guy replied, crossing his arms over his chest and leaning against the wall. I couldn't hold back a languid sigh. I felt with my whole body how tired I was, and in the next minute I was already begging to return to my room as soon as possible. My condition was probably very noticeable. The guy counted it, knowingly feigning sympathy. Forgive me for mistaking you for a girl. I'm flattered, he said, almost interrupting, already climbing up to the top step, once again turning his whole body towards his goal of reaching the top floor. Wait, Deidara, the same annoying guy stopped me, which made me feel sick, but I tried not to show it. Sasuke told me that you were his examiner for the first test. You want to ask how the exam went? Everyone in my classroom passed, that's my answer. Everyone? Am I free now? No way. How could it be otherwise? My village is very beautiful at night. Would you like to take a look? Came the unexpected question, and my eyes widened slightly, recognizing the impudent idea to interest me. Perhaps I would agree, but not now. Sorry, but I want to sleep, I snapped, taking a couple more steps up, then turned to my almost interlocutor. I don't know your name, Uchiha, but... Obito. Obito, I whispered after him, taking hold of the handrail with my hand. See you next time. Already on my way to my room, I suddenly thought about my last words. Why should I see him at all? I'll forget it. Closing the door behind me, I took off my shoes at the entrance and stomped deeper, anticipating the pleasure I would experience when I closed my eyelids on the large bed. Turning off the light along the way, the room began to acquire other colors. And I liked it. I had already looked around my new place of residence a few hours ago, but now I continued doing so, rejoicing, as an art connoisseur, that it was truly very beautiful here. The room would be ideal for some married couple on their first wedding night, aha. I lay on the soft bed for about an hour, looking only at the ceiling. During this time, the bedroom plunged into darkness, but was beautifully lit by the multicolored lanterns outside the window. And Obito said that Konoha at night was beautiful. I wanted to take a look. Getting out of bed, I went to the window and opened it wide, feeling a surge of warm wind through my thin clothes. The short strands of hair that were not pulled back into an elastic band pleasantly tickled the skin of my head and neck. I closed my eyes, again surrendering to bliss, just like a minute ago. And really, this whole atmosphere filled me with strength, as if I had slept the whole night. What will I do tomorrow? Maybe I'll take my girls to the second gen and test? Not bad, but I don't really want to go beyond this place. I wish this night could last longer. I think I heard something. Those were the footsteps of someone walking towards this building. Looking down, I was taken aback, realizing that Akasuna himself was coming here. He wasn't walking alone, but accompanied by Itachi. Could it really be that same guy who was with me on the mission? Oh, I can't. What's wrong with you, Deidara? You're actually in Konoha, if you haven't forgotten, where the entire clan of those red-eyed ones lives. It's no wonder that I would have met Itachi here someday. Angry at myself, I didn't immediately realize that I felt a breath on my neck, free of clothes. Because of the wind, my outer clothing had dropped slightly, revealing half of my collarbones. Adjusting it, I quickly turned my head back, looking with horror into the eyes opposite. You again? What are you doing here? Escaped from my mouth involuntarily, because I was truly scared. Calm down, Obito whispered in a sweet voice, lightly touching my wrists. You didn't close the door. So what? What does this have to do with it? Wait, so you didn't even knock and just decided to come in here? Right. The answer is deadly. As deadly as the dark eyes that looked at me like a toy. I don't like it, but I just bite my lower lip to keep from blurting out anything else. This place, looking around the walls, belongs to the Uchiha, the brunette stated, sitting down on a chair next to the bed, and it is my duty to protect its walls and those who are within them. Thank you for your concern, of course, but I personally don't need a nanny. Maybe you'd better take care of the exam participants? And yes, I never lock the door. Grinning mockingly, I sat down opposite him right on the bed, crossing my legs. This gesture was so fast that my hair, gathered in a bun, suddenly spread out over my back and arms, reaching the surface of the bed. My gaze changed and I shrank a little, looking at how Obito was now examining me. His gaze was riveted to the light curls, which had acquired large waves due to the hairstyle. They shimmered in the colors of the lanterns. Looking at this, I forgot about everything for a little, touching the part of the hair that fell from my right shoulder. Very cute, Uchiha said quietly, moving his gaze slightly in my direction. He definitely looks at me like a dog. I pulled my gaze away, returning to reality. So what are you doing here anyway? He decided to continue the strange conversation. To tell you straight? I'm here to show you Konoha at night. But I already saw her through the window. My answer was not heard. The guy took me by the hand and dragged me to the entrance, pressing the door handle with his other hand. Put on your shoes and let's go, Obito said, squeezing my hand a little tighter. We quickly went out into the corridor and moved somewhere where this amazingly immortal man was leading me. Doesn't he know that I can just blow him up right here and now? Still, his actions are inappropriate for someone like me. But my thoughts instantly faded into the background when we passed the next door, in front of which stood the same two people I saw through the window of my bedroom. I passed by Sasori-san and he looked at me somehow strangely. I don't understand what feelings were connected with this look, but I quickly lowered my eyes to the floor, which looked guilty and rather stupid. And in addition, I was still holding hands with Obito, who confidently led me forward to the exit. Akasuna's POV. The rest of the day, I thought about this 16-year-old examiner. During the day, I saw him in the company of other shinobi from the Hidden Stone, especially near 3 teenage girls. Apparently, they were close friends, since they all laughed together at any joke and sidelong glance. It looked very funny. It was also funny how the local ninjas around me were surprised at the sight of a young man who, at his age, had already achieved a decent title and rank, now easily participating as the main one at the exam. This surprised and delighted at the same time. Also, deep down, I was glad when I found out that the room next to mine would belong to that buried Tsukuri. Itachi, my friend, and also my personal guide around the village, dragged himself with me all evening. He distracted me from thoughts about one and only for a while, but not completely. Approaching the right door, I was already anticipating how I would think about the neighbor through the wall from the lonely room. This is wrong. It's strange. But I couldn't help the feelings that flared up in the audience today. While talking to Itachi about the upcoming part of the exam, I heard voices coming from the room next door. Before I could think about anything, that door swung open, letting out two figures. A young man, who looked like my companion, was leading a slightly blushing Deidara, who glanced at me, then lowered his eyes, continuing to follow the guy and continuing to hold his hand. Itachi looked at the couple in surprise. "Oh, Obito. I only told him about Tsukuri this morning, and now he's already hanging around with him," the long-haired man snorted, adjusting the strands of hair falling over his face. What did you tell him? Huh? Well, for example, that once upon a time this kid and I participated in the same mission. It was about a year ago. I wanted to approach Deidara today, but it seems that now is not the time. For some reason, the last words puzzled me even more. I was still looking at the landing, where the blonde's fragile body had already disappeared, and I still couldn't stop looking in that direction. "Where is he taking him?" he asked, more to himself. Itachi, not hiding his surprise at the question, explained that Obito wanted to show our guest Konoha at night today. It really is especially beautiful after sunset. No village can compare in this to Leaf. I looked at my friend's dark eyes with incomprehension, for the first time hearing mockery in the timbre of his voice, as if the Uchiha understood that I was not indifferent to the fate of the younger one. "Oh, come on, Sasori-san." The interlocutor laughed, clapping me on the shoulder. "If anything happens, Deidara won't let anyone hurt him, I know that for sure. Besides, he's safe with Obito." Then I heard a couple of weighty arguments. First, Obito is the strongest of his clan, and second, he has had a girlfriend named Rin for a long time. They loved each other since childhood, and now the couple is 25 years old. Even a cutie like Tsukuri is unlikely to interest him in this regard, pounded in my head a few more times. Tsukuri's POV. Obito had seemed strange to me since our first meeting, when he mistook me for the opposite sex. And let him continue to act strangely, not loosening his grip even when we left the multi-story hotel. My thoughts were occupied with what had happened in the hallway. Had Akasuna thought something unnecessary? Hell, of course. After all, I had rushed past him so close that a strand of hair, still retaining its wavy structure, touched his clothes. I managed to glance at my reflection in the mirror in the foyer and became even more embarrassed, because I myself would have believed that today Uchiha was accompanied by a blonde stranger who even got her hair curled. Wah! I want to fall through the ground, damn it. Pulling my hand away, I finally stopped, looking into Obito's slightly clouded gaze. "How much longer were you going to drag me, Uchiha?" I grumbled discontentedly, simultaneously searching in my pockets for a hair tie to tie my hair back before anyone else noticed. He said nothing, looking down guiltily. And which of us is 16? By the way, how old are you? I asked and clucked that I couldn't find anything with which to make a familiar ponytail. A little over 20. Huh? So tell me the exact number. Crossing my arms on my chest, I decided not to follow the brunette until I got an answer. Well, he hesitated, taking a step forward, almost 26. Interesting, Uchihas always look younger than their age, huh? Well, no matter. I, a contented youth, now know what I want from this guy. Resolutely moving almost right up to the tall figure, I slightly stretched upwards, right to his ear, which made me hear a heavy sigh. Deidara, what are you? You really want to show me the night streets, right? He said a little quieter, almost in a whisper. Nod. I'll give you about an hour for this, and then we'll go to the bar, okay? Do you really want to drink with me? Obito said loudly and completely unexpectedly, grabbing me by the shoulders, as if he couldn't believe his ears. Hey, hands, pulling away, why so loud? I just want to relax completely, what's wrong with that? But you're only 16. And? Today I was an examiner, remember? That means I have every right to behave like an adult. That makes sense, the second one sighed, scratching the back of his head, but they're unlikely to sell you alcohol. I have you for this, I hissed, now independently grabbing the guy's hand and moving him forward, faster, time doesn't wait. Why did I do this? What, Sukuri, are your hormones playing up? You want to relax, are you serious? You've never had a sip of anything stronger than coffee. God, I refuse to be this brat's mind. Abido still kept his word when we walked a little along the central streets, which were quite crowded with people, although it was approaching midnight. This place turned out to be much more beautiful than when I was looking at the lanterns from a distance from the window of my room. I noticed that even my hair shimmered in multicolored shades, which made my new acquaintance stare again, slowing down along the way. I did not answer him, since I did not want to spoil the atmosphere with my usual barking. After all, there was a rather formidable guy next to me. I noticed that almost all the locals we met on our way greeted Abido or simply bowed their heads briefly. I never thought I'd say this, but blondes look so much better next to you, someone said from around the corner. Hey, Hataki, long time no see, Abido smiled. If I were walking alone, I'd think you were hinting at yourself. I rolled my eyes, regretfully realizing that I was once again not in the best light for myself. Another gray-haired guy showed up. Kakashi was the mentor of the three who were now taking part in the next stage of their ninja careers. He was also the teacher of the younger Uchiha. He even took Sasuke for private lessons shortly before the appointed day. We talked for a short time before the three of us trudged off to a place where we could get a drink. I didn't mind Hataki's company, because he managed to dilute the strange atmosphere between me and the black-haired man. That was until we were met at the threshold of the establishment by another man, whose external resemblance was 100% to the thick-browed young man from the exam. His father, or what? He introduced himself to me as Might Guy, a master of taijutsu. I had never heard of such a technique before, but there was no point in asking. The thick-browed man almost immediately began to boast of his skills, eclipsing the voices of the others in the assembled company. One could feel like a black sheep among the Konoha guys, but things were different. Having started drinking some strange drink, I noted to myself that it didn't taste so terrible. And after drinking 2 or 3 cups, I felt my cheeks burning. Someone else sat down next to us, or rather, sat closer to me. Abido, who was sitting next to me on the other side, suddenly grabbed my body with one hand, greedily pressing it to his torso. I was like a toy that children couldn't share. It seemed that this someone was sticking to me, offering to move to the next table. Bursting into the stranger's gaze, I suddenly remembered, this was the same observer I had thrown out of the window this morning. Abruptly moving away, I mentally growled at the guy's impudent face, already imagining how I would grab him by the throat. Abido, don't bother me, I said, trying to break free from the brunette's hands that had grabbed mine again. I jerked again, not ceasing to stare into the drunken eyes opposite. I'll deal with him myself, burst out from the lips of my new acquaintance. You? Why do you need this? I looked at Uchiha in confusion. Come on, said Guy, who had risen from his seat, get away from our guest, you idiot. Thank you. Now the whole place is looking at us. This man in the green suit pounced on my hater. That's how I saw taijutsu in action. I don't remember how I came to my senses, returning to my room accompanied by Abido. Now we were alone and climbing the stairs to the top floor. But I remember that the evening spent in the company of guys will be remembered for a long time. It was fun. And the drunken fight between the shinobi cheered me up to the skies. I haven't laughed so much in a long time. Stomping along the familiar corridor, I couldn't stop grinning. Maybe it's because I haven't sobered up yet? Partly. Yes, I'm still a little drunk, but happy. It's still good that I didn't fall asleep in my room right away. Do you want to sleep? Asked my guide. Not yet, I said, stretching, and you? A little. So why didn't you tell me right away? I was taken aback, standing in front of the door next to me. I didn't immediately realize that this door belonged to Sasori-san, that he was probably right here, right next door. HM? Looking at me with strange interest. God, slapping himself on the head, you should already be going to your place, and not walking me all the way to the door. Have you seen the time? I'm just heading home, Obito said languidly, putting on a sly grin. Do you want to come with me? What? I live right over there, he said, pointing to the end of the corridor. You could have said it right away, he barked back, turning his head away in an offended manner, like a little boy, which amused the guy even more. So? Are you serious right now? What are we going to do there? I was already blushing quite a bit, looking at the brunette who had come very close to my face. Impermissibly close. He suddenly muttered thoughts under his breath at that moment, as if he remembered something. I can't say that I can read lips very well, but I understood something like, she probably came back earlier. Uchiha? Call me by my name, okay? The second one babbled, touching my wrist. I like hearing it from you better. I can't imagine how much I blushed at that moment. The feeling of embarrassment that filled my mind prevented me from concentrating on the next words I wanted to say to him. Why hadn't I jumped back yet? Why hadn't I blown this man up back then, when I saw him standing in my bedroom? Obito pulled away first, satisfied. Sweet dreams, Deidara, I heard at last. I'll come see you later. What a situation, huh? I feel like I took an exam today to control my Tsukuri emotions and failed miserably. Entering the hallway, I didn't turn on the light and immediately stomped into the bedroom, where I was already dreaming of lying down in bed and forgetting. Having pulled off almost all of his clothes and remaining only in a light t-shirt and underwear, he quietly lay down under the blanket, adjusting his hair, which was spread out on the pillow. It became so unimaginably warm and pleasant that he immediately melted in comfort. As soon as my eyes somehow opened and got used to the darkness filling the entire space, I felt that someone was lying next to me. Before I had time to come to my senses, probably to get scared, I suddenly made out familiar features. Akasuna's face was in front of me. He was quietly snoring, the corners of his lips occasionally trembling. Watching this became such a fascinating occupation that I suddenly wanted to feel how soft this porcelain skin of the youth was. I wonder if it was as pleasant to the touch as it was on the outside. And his slightly disheveled bright hair? And his lips? Stop. What am I doing? Why am I getting closer? I can't control myself, is this normal? I'm still drunk, right? Thoughts, they leave my head as quickly as they come. My head is spinning. Is it because of the alcohol I drank today or because of the beautiful and unattainable Sasori-san? How did it happen that he was here, next to me? A dream? More like a dream. As beautiful as Akasuna himself. I raised myself slightly and touched the lips of the sleeping man, dreaming of feeling the taste of his charming lips. He was like a doll, although he showed signs of life, and one of the signs was the warmth of his body. It was so pleasant to me that I could not resist, slightly hugging him by the shoulders and pressing my lips a little harder with mine. I had never kissed him, although I had seen something like this many times. It was truly an incredible feeling. Sleep, let it last longer than allowed. I want to kiss Sasori-san. Akasuna's POV. I remember I couldn't fall asleep for a long time, but now I think I've passed out for a while. The dream, which had many events, emotions, and feelings, suddenly broke apart, at the same time as my eyes opened. What? Tsukuri? He's very close. I felt the younger one lightly touching my lips, trying to exhale as quietly as possible, so as not to wake me up. But why is this happening? I raised my palm and touched the wavy bangs falling on my pillow. Noticing this, Deidara quickly pulled away, but I immediately pulled him back, now taking the initiative in touching him. I pressed myself to the blonde's lips, feeling the slightly noticeable smell of alcohol. Otherwise, many thoughts about my latest discovery would have crept into my head, but now I completely surrendered to the process, now firmly pressing the fragile body to myself with both hands. Deidara responded to the kiss pliantly, although he remained timid, as if he had not started it. I dug into the plump lips of the younger, brazenly wrapping my fingers around the long hair at the crown of his head, preventing him from moving away. I didn't want the boy to run away. Lowering Deidara's head onto the pillow, I, without ceasing to feel his lips, leaned over him even closer, almost touching him with my whole body. The kiss deepened, and at the same time his hot breath became louder and more seductive. It drives me crazy. My hands began to wander over his body, outlining the blonde slenderness. He was so hot and so sweet at the same time. I wanted more Deidara. I began to envelop his body carefully and gently, gradually going under the fabric of his t-shirt with my fingertips. His skin was soft and innocent. It seemed that by touching it, I would leave my indelible mark. But I wanted it more than ever. The desire was rapidly growing and Deidara was the first to break away from the kiss. He regained his breath, burying his palms in my torso, so that I would move away. "This dream is truly beautiful," the younger one quietly muttered, touching my face once more and running it down, after which he closed his blue eyes, but a lazy smile still froze on his ruddy face. Equals part 4 equals. Tsukuri's POV. Is it morning already? I mumbled, rubbing my newly opened eyelids. It was light in the bedroom, and the birds were chirping outside. I glanced at the clock and saw that the sun had just risen. Raising my head from the pillow and throwing back the blanket, I realized that my head was still a little dizzy. The booze from last night had taken its toll. I dashed to the shower room and quickly glanced back, peering at the chair on which my clothes from yesterday were neatly folded. Didn't I throw it on the floor? I don't remember. I took a cool shower, changed my clothes to something looser and more familiar to me, which made it doubly pleasant. Now my head has completely stopped hurting. After brushing my teeth, I spat out the toothpaste and washed the rest off my lips, now looking at myself renewed in the spacious mirror. I wanted to smile at the day that had started well, but now I see my swollen and slightly reddened lips in the reflection. How should this be understood? Rubbing my wet hair indignantly, I looked at my face again, then glanced at the chair with my things from the hallway. Now I moved towards the hallway. The shoes were in place and also neatly placed at the entrance. Am I really that aesthetically pleasing when I'm drunk in terms of the coziness of my place of residence? I don't know why, but I wanted to check the front door. It was locked from the inside. What? I never lock myself out. I couldn't do this yesterday. Blushing with anger, images began to form in my head, how the caring Abito came to me again in the dead of night, in order to... Ugh, my heart rhythm is disturbed again. But this action is already going beyond the limits. I've known this Uchiha for only a day, and he's already alarming me beyond measure. So, he came to me, straightened his shoes, folded his clothes and locked the door? Damn maniac. Lips? I went to the mirror again, realizing with horror that they were the same as a couple of minutes ago. Did he kiss me? What about my dream? I had it because of this, didn't I? Oh, why did I even remember that? Now I feel so much more uncomfortable when I remember Akasuna. I remembered everything that happened in that dream. How I started kissing him, then he seemed to wake up and continue it all himself, but how wonderful it was. No. This is 100% Uchiha's doing. There's no one else. Ruffling my wet hair, I resolutely moved towards the sky, slightly stamping my feet. Finding myself almost at the door, it opens in front of my nose, releasing an unfamiliar young lady who immediately smiled at me. Oh, hello. Are you Tsukuri Deidara? How unexpected. I was hoping to see you among the examiners today. Excuse me, my name is Rin, I am a kunoichi from the Leaf, nice to meet you, the girl with short brown hair tied in a ponytail said timidly. Why yes, me too, nice, shaking the cute shinobi's hand, I was a little shocked. The memory of what Abito said to himself surfaced, and I read the words on his lips. She is the girl who is standing in front of me now. So she is the Uchiha's girlfriend. Good morning Rin, Deidara, the third responded with a voice very familiar to me. Nice to see you again, Demolition Man. It's Itachi himself. He came up to us, adjusting his uniform with the Uchiha clan mark cut out on it. You're early today, Itachi. Did something happen? Rin asked. I'm in a hurry. We're preparing for the second stage of the exam. Everyone's already gathered, except for your blockhead. Oh, that. The girl blushed, visibly confused. Abito came back very late yesterday and went straight to bed. So I didn't wake him up. Okay, Itachi exhaled, crossing his arms over his chest. I'll have to make him get up. Dark eyes darted towards me. Deidara, let's have lunch together today? At least tell me how life is going. I nodded, feigning something resembling a smile. My thoughts were completely confused. Finding myself alone with myself in the now empty corridor, my soul felt strange. Was I mistaken? Before Ren left on her business, she explained that she lived here, together with Obito. Even an idiot could understand that they were a couple. I was right. But why didn't Uchiha tell me anything about her? And most importantly, the answer to my main question about the strange night remains unclear. Sighing languidly, I wandered back to my room to dry my hair and tidy myself up. But halfway to my door, I met Akasuna's gaze. He paused, as if peering into my soul through dilated pupils. I was stunned to see the armband with the hidden Stone Village symbol in the man's hand. It was definitely mine. I remembered entering the room. I remembered throwing my things on the floor. I remembered crawling under the covers and falling asleep. The last thing I wanted to do before I closed my eyes was to pull out the ninja headband that had fallen out of my pocket and rolled under the bed. But I didn't do it, passing out too quickly. Akasuna took my thing out of his room. It wasn't a dream? I said out loud for some reason, then quickly covered my mouth with my hand, as if I had cursed in front of my mother. And Sasori-san's face was proof of that. As soon as he saw me, his face distorted, but after my question, everything became more than clear to me. Coming closer to me, Sasori handed me the bandage. I, still not looking away, took it, feeling that I was about to fall into an abyss of shame. I'm not drunk, I told you. Obito said, falling out of his room with a bang. The disturber of his sleep followed him out. Come on, hurry up, time is running out. You should have left for your mission half an hour ago, Itachi replied, helping Obito wake up at the same time. Oh, Deidara, you're here too, smiled yesterday's companion, approaching me. How did you sleep in your new place? Itachi clicked his tongue and pushed his relative again, threatening to kill him if he didn't stop acting like an idiot. I apologize for this, Itachi addressed us, pointing at Obito, a misunderstanding. Deidara, breakfast will be arriving soon, so please stay in your room, have some food, and we will wait for you at the site of the second test. Sasori-san, I have a small matter for you. Come with me. I watched the tall figures retreat. Itachi had taken Sasori-san away from me rather quickly, which probably saved the situation. Saved my ass. God only knows what Red Sand Sasori would have done to me if he had stayed alone with me for another minute. He would have destroyed me on the spot. Not only had I confused my door with Akasuna's number, but I had also laid down next to him and, standing next to several men from different villages, we discussed today's stage of the exam. More precisely, everyone discussed it except me. I, as a person who had already completed my mission yesterday, could calmly sit aside, but they asked me about the powers and tricks that I had managed to notice in the children within the audience. Naturally, they used their cunning to write down the information I needed on paper. I knew perfectly well which of them wrote it themselves, and which used their special zest at the expense of the latter. While clearly explaining the answer, I encountered admiring glances from the examiners a couple of times. Well, be surprised at my abilities, be surprised. I don't care about that at all now. I care about something else. We were standing right at the entrance to the forest strip, behind the barrier of which was today's test. But the minutes passed quickly and now the rest of the shinobi began to approach us, including the mentors. And among them Akasuna should have already appeared, but I was sincerely afraid to even look in the direction of the road along which many people were already walking. Maybe the man from Hidden Sand wouldn't kill me in front of everyone? Well, then I feel a little calmer. There was no point in running away from here as quickly as possible now. Look, it's the same one, said someone from a large crowd behind me. I felt someone's piercing gaze on my back. There was no point in even turning in that direction to understand that he was talking about me. I had found myself in a similar situation too often. Where? Open your eyes. That one, short and with long hair. Oh yes, I am flattered to the skies, realizing that I guessed right again. I deserve medals for guessing perverts. Although I did not turn to the shinobi and continued to listen to the examiners briefly, standing closer to them, it was not so easy to concentrate on the matter now. So, this stage can last more than a day? One of my men continued his reasoning, suddenly distracted by something behind his back. Hey, guy, what are you doing here? Menacingly peering into the eyes of the young man sneaking up on us. For some reason, he got even more scared after I looked in his direction. The boy, who looked no more than 10 years old, jumped up to me and thrust some paper into my hands. After which he disappeared from us, his heels flashing. God, what's wrong with him? Daidara-kun, what is this? Asked the woman who was the mentor of the 3 girls from my home village. I hadn't expected to meet her in such a setting. There is an envelope in my hand. Wow, that's interesting. She looked at the white paper carefully, her eyes sparkling, anticipating what might be inside. Most likely, this is money for yesterday's test, or this is definitely a declaration of love from one of the girls. The same man who had scared the little boy with his menacing look broke into his thoughts. I don't need that here, uncle. No, someone else who had just approached us spoke up. It says there that they want to see Tsukuri. Itachi, what the hell? I couldn't help but ask, noticing the Sharingan flashing in the guy's eyes. Next to Itachi stood his younger brother, who was barely holding back the laughter that was escaping. It was surprising to see Sasuke not as quiet and focused as he had seemed yesterday. His facial expression reminded me even more of Obito. And the girls who were following the Uchihas on their heels were now looking at my reaction with lust. With a hopeless chuckle, I decided to leave everyone to open the letter alone. I don't know why I decided to do this now, but my curiosity was growing. Daidara-senpai, is it true that you were invited on a date? The pink-haired girl asked, stomping along with me, still watching my every action with fascination. You've already read what's written there, haven't you? Sakura, what if Itachi Uchiha was right? He used his Sharingan, you saw? The blonde continued. What if he just used his technique for show? The first one spoke up, stopping everyone in a second, drawing full attention to herself. Why are you looking at him like that? I saw Itachi-san talking to someone about Tsukuri Deidara. Now I, too, suddenly stopped, looking at the green eyes of the concentrated girl. I think Itachi-san is the one who invited Daidara-senpai on a date. Hinata, are you sure about this? Eh? Screaming loudly, the girls joyfully took each other's hands and began to circle around the dumbfounded me. I got a little distracted, looking at the long-haired one from the Yamanaka clan. We even look a little similar. Sorry to bother you, I said for the first time, but isn't it time for you to go to the test? What? We have an exam. Whispering among themselves, the teenagers quickly disappeared around the corner, staring at me until the last moment. Sighing contentedly, I placed the paper in the inner pocket of my ninja uniform and wandered forward, reaching the park, decorated with branching trees along the road and empty benches. The weather at this hour was quite warm. I was thinking about wearing something lighter today, because from today on I am not an examiner, but just a guest in Hidden Leaves, waiting for the tests to end. Having sat down on one of the wooden benches, I dreamily closed my eyes, relaxing. I still felt a little sleepy. So how did you sleep today? A voice sounded unexpectedly close to my face. You could have at least given a sign that you were approaching, I muttered, involuntarily jerking, while simultaneously watching Obito's tall figure sit down next to me. I slept fine. I heard someone invited you on a date. Unfounded rumors, I stated decisively, crossing my legs. Really? What's with that look? Frowning, I wanted to sit back a little, but I was already sitting on the very edge. The guy's face changed as abruptly as his appearance here. Deidara. M? What is written in the letter? Why do you need to know? It's personal. My voice trembled for some reason. I didn't feel fear or simple apprehension, but the pale face opposite me was boring into me, expecting something. You won't answer? Moving a little closer. Eh? I just want to know who got it into their head to hit on you. This guy. Why does he care about something like this? Uchiha is making the situation too tense with his gaze. Should I respond to something like this? The situation looks like a husband suspected his other half of cheating. This was starting to sound like nonsense. I stood up from my seat, unable to bear the tension. So, he drew himself up to his full height. It's none of your business, okay? If you want to know, I haven't read what's in there yet. But if it turns out that they wanted to meet me, I'll go to meet them. Will you go? The guy stood up after me and immediately moved close to me. Give me the letter. Oh no, he said, taking a few steps back. There was an awkward pause. Obito looked angry. He grabbed the fabric of my coat, pulling me towards him. I closed my eyes, expecting a blow, but all I got in response was something I didn't expect to hear. Your lips looked different this morning. What? Here we go again. Again the image of Akasuna appeared in my thoughts. I involuntarily began to blush. Why does this betray my state? What were you doing last night, Deidara? Brazenly examining my face. I was sleeping, I told you. Not alone, right? The last one got me mad. I broke free from the hold, moving away. I felt my face burning with embarrassment. I tore away from Uchiha, but he was resolutely catching up. You're already starting to go too far, he snorted, not intending to stop. So the letter is from the same one who kissed you all night? It's none of your business. Stop following me. Obito stopped me, pressing me to himself by the shoulders. I pulled back again, removing the stranger's hands. It would be better if you went to your ren, and not run after me here, making the dogs laugh, I squeezed out, pointing at the two four-legged creatures resting in the sun. They looked at us strangely, attracting my unnecessary attention. Only now did I notice the hidden leaf bandages on them. These are animals with ninjutsu abilities. Well, I'm sorry that they heard and understood everything that happened before their eyes. Obito didn't pay any attention to those present. When I said the last thing, he froze in place, still staring in my direction. And what, I wonder, is going on in his head right now? Didn't expect to hear from me what I know about the Uchiha girl, huh? Obito, hey? I patted my hand in front of his black eyes, but I got nothing. He continued to stare at me, making a strange grimace of annoyance. I sighed heavily, took out the letter and put it in the guy's palm. You wanted to know what was written there. So go ahead. After a while, the elder looked down. I'm sorry, Deidara. I shouldn't have pestered you with these questions, the guy said quietly and handed me the paper back, slowly raising his gaze. I don't care about this letter, but the fact that I saw your lips this morning. Yes, I kissed. Almost interrupting, I answered honestly. In response to this, Uchiha seemed to freeze again and, without saying anything else, watched as I, without even moving from my place, read the handwritten lines. And this letter is not from the one well, you know. This is a message from the hidden stone. What, is it urgent? Did something happen? No, it's just that my mother is worried that I haven't blown up your village yet. A sincere laugh followed from our lips, which instantly diluted the tense atmosphere. She writes that she's waiting for my return because she misses me, I added, putting the message back in my pocket. Clear. What's wrong with your face, Uchiha? Just now you looked like a maniac, and now. I asked you, he grabbed my wrist, to call me by my name. Okay, Obito, emphasizing the last point, I removed the other person's hand once again today, now awkwardly looking away. The dogs, who had become involuntary witnesses to this drama, rose from the grass and wandered off in one direction past us. Thank you for the show, young people, one of them said in a human voice, wagging her tail, after which they jumped up and disappeared as if they had never been there. Commentary on Part 4. So you write inspired, you compose, and then BAM and half of the part is gone. That's what happened to me. I tried to gather my remaining nerves into a fist and repeat what I wrote as accurately as possible. It seems I didn't do it as well as the first time, damn. Equals 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 part 5 equals 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 equals. Although I spent the rest of the day in crowded places, I still dreamed of not running into Sasori-san. As promised, I had lunch in the company of Itachi Uchiha. I noticed that he was quite close to the red-headed one, so I was doubly afraid of seeing the latter today. But fortunately, this did not happen. Itachi, when he woke Obito and kicked him out into the corridor, was surprised to see me and Akasuna together. Fortunately, the brunette did not hear the idiotic, "It was not a dream," although he was interested in what we could talk about at such an early hour. "Actually, we crossed paths even earlier," I explained to the black-eyed man. "Sasori-san was one of the observers in the audience with me." "So that's how you met," Itachi answered, running his hand along the length of my hair. At this point, evening was approaching. We were in my room, lazily looking out the window. The sun was gradually leaving our eyes, and the little lanterns were burning brighter and brighter on the streets, returning my mind to yesterday. It would soon become just as fabulous. "How are things going with the test?" I asked. "The students are determined to win, and no one is planning to give their scrolls to the other team yet," explained the guy who was only a couple of years older. "Deidara, how did you pass the Genin exam?" "What about me?" He thought. "I hardly remember, I was very little then." "Really?" Settling his elbows more comfortably on the windowsill. "Well, such a kid, my mentor and other teachers arranged some tasks for me, after which they raised my rank." Itachi listened with interest to my little story from childhood. I had already told a lot of things from my early days, proving to myself once again that I had not yet grown up at all. I was still the same playful child with sharp words and dreamy eyes. I had always been like that. And I continued to follow the dictates of my character. "Some of the things you said," Itachi began, "don't make sense in my head." "Why?" "On the one hand, you were a completely ordinary child in terms of behavior, but your ninja abilities were already amazing back then." He smiled, looking at me. "I admire people like you," Uchiha unexpectedly finished, but I waved it off. Usually people with outstanding abilities eventually take the wrong path. "Are you on the wrong path?" "I'm only 16, I sighed. Who knows what will happen to me in the future? Maybe I'm destined to leave the village and end up in some dangerous group?" Itachi chuckled. "If this really happens, then I will be the one who drags you into your dangerous group." From the author. God, I didn't even notice how I mentally moved to the Akatsuki era. Heh. A crow flew to my window and sat on a branch of a tall tree, cawing as if addressing my friend. The guy stretched, loosening his bones, and brushed his black tail behind his back, as if he understood the bird's language. They looked at each other attentively. "I have to go. I still need to keep an eye on Sasuke and his team during the night test," Uchiha said, briefly opening the window, letting the crow in. It landed on Itachi's shoulder, taking in my surprised expression. "Okay," I replied, already seeing the two of them off at the front door. "Don't forget to finish your dinner," the brunette said as a parting shot. I closed the door, but didn't lock it again. Why change my habits? If I continue to hide from Akasuna, then some locked door won't be an obstacle for him to slam me. Oh, how I wish that what happened in his room remained just my sick, overactive fantasy. It had been a while since I had showered again and prepared for a quiet evening in front of the TV, changing out of my shinobi uniform for my favorite baggy gray clothes. What? A knock on the door? That's definitely not Obito. I swallowed nervously, turning on the light in the hallway. It had already gotten noticeably dark outside the window, and I didn't even notice. But then again, who else would want to see me at the beginning of 8? Maybe after today's conversation Uchiha felt ashamed and decided not to violate the boundaries of what was permitted so abruptly? Approaching the door, I opened it, not daring to look up, since until the last second I was trying to avoid thinking about the fact that the puppeteer's face would now appear before me. Hello. It was him after all. Sasori-san. I looked up, biting my lower lip slightly as my heart felt an extra beat, causing it to skip a beat near this man. Again. "Dana," escaped my lips involuntarily. "Come in." The man's expression changed for a moment, but quickly became his usual emotionless self. He walked deeper into the living room, then turned to me as I approached. "I came to apologize." "Wha, huh?" I couldn't figure it out. Did I hear it wrong? There was no more time to waste. If I didn't tell everything as it happened, I would definitely go crazy. "I mixed up the doors," I said quickly, looking resolutely into the gray-brown eyes, "so I fell asleep next to you without noticing." My voice, it began to tremble again from an excess of emotion. "And when I saw you, for some reason I decided that it was just a dream, so He began to speak in a louder tone. "I'm definitely going to explode from shame now. I'm sorry, Akasuna repeated again, slightly interrupting the very essence of my devilish act, which I just wanted to tell. I fell into a stupor and fell silent. I shouldn't have kept kissing you and groping you then. The man came a little closer to me. But. Sasori-san. Unlike you, I wasn't drunk. I should have apologized. A contradictory feeling arose in my mind. Even if it was as Akasuna told me, did it mean that I really wanted to touch his lips only under the influence of alcohol? And if not? My heart beats faster just from the thought of him. Then how should I understand such a reaction? You know everything, Deidara. You fell in love with Sasori-san. And the feelings arose even before you found yourself in his room. Please don't apologize, I said, looking down. I did it because I had too much to drink, that's true. But I would never have done it otherwise, although I would like to. Very much. Oh my God, what am I saying? My cheeks were so hot that I was ashamed to look up. I don't care about my face. I just told Akasuna that he. The man's warm palm touched my cheek, gently running his fingertips over it. I flinched slightly, holding my breath for a second, and saw Sasori take a step forward, cutting the distance between us even further. He is so close. Very close. Deidara, look at me. He ran his fingers a little lower, to my chin, now lifting my head so that I would look at him. I am so ashamed in front of him for my actions. And for my words. Ashamed of myself. He looked straight into my eyes, gradually moving down to my lips. He ran the back of his index finger over my lower lip, apologizing again. This action caused another storm of goosebumps. I am like a doll in front of him, unable to move or speak until the chakra threads allow it. Enough, don't apologize, Dana, I whispered so quietly, as if I was scared to death of the elder's reaction. I wanted to kiss you too, the red-haired man said almost just as quietly, which made me think again that his words seemed like another one of my fantasies. I like you, Tsukuri. What? I like you, Sasori repeated, touching my loose hair. He stroked it from the top of my head to the level of my back, which he pressed lightly, causing me to lean against his torso, my hand slightly touching Sasori-san's body. But I didn't remove my hands. I moved them around the man's body and pressed myself a little harder, burying my burning cheek in the shoulder of such a warm person. He hugged me, pressing me all the way to himself. Now there wasn't even a millimeter between us. And I was still seething with a feeling of shock. What else had to happen now for me to believe in this reality? Sasori-san, thank you for bringing me back to my room and locking the door. There was no answer. We continued to share the warmth of our bodies with each other. Akasuna lightly ran his hand down my back, as if to calm the strong heartbeat that we both could now hear. Tell me, after that kiss, I passed out, right? That's the last thing I remember. If you hadn't fallen asleep then, I would hardly have been able to stop, Sasori-san admitted, which made me shrink, raising my frightened eyes to him. I'm sorry, the elder smiled, touching the skin of my face once more. I was unable to respond to this. It made me sick to think about what could have happened next that night. I can't stop blushing and I probably seriously resemble a ripe tomato. Despite my embarrassment, I resolutely took a step back to try to somehow come to my senses. I really didn't want to pull away from the man's hands, but I had to do it, otherwise I would have a heart attack. Dana, sit down, I said, inviting him to sit on the spacious and rather soft sofa. The elder one did so. He probably didn't care that the TV was on in the room. Right now, attention was drawn only to me. I quickly brought a couple of cups of tea and something tasty into the living room. Tell me, I said, turning off the channel and throwing the remote control somewhere to the side. About what? About myself. I've heard so little about you. You must really have a very busy life. Well, not that, rather, she's quite boring. Really? That's why you decided to become a mentor to the younger ones? If not, why? A sudden change of actions and words was my only salvation now. It seemed that the elder one completely understood me in this. We both needed a little distraction. I asked many questions while drinking weak tea. I was probably even a little annoying to Sasori-san, but he willingly answered everything that interested me. It was pleasantly touching. I wanted to ask him about his personal life, but I didn't dare. The hugs turned into conversation too abruptly. I felt awkward, because it was the first time I talked to Akasuna about such ordinary topics. And it looked a little strange. If I hadn't gone to his room yesterday, I would have felt much more relaxed now. But it was too late to talk about such things. So your biography really isn't lying about your age, I thought, looking somewhere at the ceiling. I didn't believe until the very end that you were already over 30. And I still don't believe it. Does it turn you off? It sounded normal, but not to me. And he knew it. Huh? No, of course not, I smiled, eating another candy. If I didn't know that you were so warm, I would have thought that 10 years ago you had already made yourself into the same kind of puppet that you create. A short laugh was heard in response. Akasuna was watching me closely with his eyes, and for some reason a little discomfort and embarrassment remained. Of course, I had already recovered from the recent emotional overload, but I still didn't feel completely relaxed, sitting on the same couch with Akasuna. I was still very nervous. Fortunately, when I started to talk a little about myself, I remembered many funny stories that I told along the way, causing laughter. "You're very cute," Sasori said, hearing yet another absurd situation. These words, spoken by his lips, were pronounced with exactly the same intonation as the confession I heard from him a little earlier. Now I completely stopped smiling, putting the finished cup aside. For some reason I wanted to sleep like crazy. It was like a warning to myself not to say anything unnecessary. But I really wanted to say how beautiful Sasori was. I was ready to hear his velvety voice forever. I liked the voice no less than its owner. It was madness. I am even more in love with this man, completely and utterly. "You're sleepy," Sasori-san noted, standing opposite me. "You need to sleep." I nodded understandingly, a little upset that our meeting was now over. "I'll see you out," I said, following the tall man into the corridor. The lights were off here, so I saw Akasuna's body turn to me in the semi-darkness and look me straight in the eyes. "Deidara." Instead of answering, I only hesitantly raised my gaze, blushing again. For some reason, I became scared, expecting what would happen next, which was unknown to me. "Can I hug you again?" "And you, will you come to me tomorrow?" "I'll come," it sounded like balm to the soul. I exhaled contentedly, lowering my eyes in the hope of hiding the stupid smile that was trying to force its way out. Akasuna once again pressed me to himself so tightly that I miraculously did not fall, losing my balance for a second. Excitement hit my body again, so much so that my head began to spin. Slowly moving away, Sasori walked out into the common corridor, closing the door behind him. As soon as it closed, making a quiet knock, the lock suddenly clicked from the inside. I looked at it, fascinated. So that's how Sasori-san locked my door back then. It was the power of his chakra threads. I took a few steps towards the door and touched the cold surface, now unable to hold back a smile. My dream, could I have imagined that my mistake would lead to this outcome? Equals 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 part 6 equals 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 equals. Akasuna's POV. Last night I couldn't fall asleep for a very long time. I spent most of the time staring at the wall behind which Deidara's room was. And already early in the morning, when the first rays of the sun just started to appear outside the window, I opened the light fabrics to the sides, waking up completely and simultaneously looking towards the same wall. I know his door is still locked. This to some extent awakened additional calmness, accompanied by a slight smile. Knocking on the next door, I patiently waited to hear footsteps behind it. I heard someone approaching. For some reason, the footsteps turned into running right at the exit. Bams! The door bursts open. Out comes a hastily dressed Deidara with disheveled hair and a red forehead. My face changed as I looked at all this. I almost lost my head. The younger one laughed loudly, trying to squeeze out the words more clearly. "What happened?" "My brains," said the second, pointing to himself, "they're the ones that got screwed up." Deidara couldn't stifle his panicked laughter, already clutching his stomach and struggling to stay in place. I reached my hand towards his face, releasing light green healing chakra. The bruise wasn't bad, because if it had been a little bit more, the door would have been broken down. The guy was taken aback and fell silent, his eyes wide open. "Sasori-san, what are you doing?" "Stay like that for a little while longer," I said, looking at the affected area. The redness was disappearing quickly and I didn't stop until it was gone completely. "Thank you." He was still undisguisedly surprised. He straightened up and touched his forehead. "I didn't know you could." "Now you know," I smiled in response, taking a decisive step towards Tsukuri. "So tell me, what was that just now?" "I was just really looking forward to your arrival, so I miscalculated my speed and slipped." This answer made me laugh involuntarily. I look at the disheveled kid, trying to look anywhere but in my direction. "Funny. Let's go have breakfast?" I suggested, barely touching his palm. "Yes. I mean, I need to get ready." "Will you wait for me?" "Fine." I jumped back, intending to go to the opposite side of the hallway to look out one of the large windows, but was suddenly pulled into the confines of the room that belonged to Deidara. He sat me down on a chair, then rushed into the bedroom, quickly sorting through some clothes. I could watch this process from behind the half-open door. Now, rushing like a bullet to the mirror, he began to comb his hair. "I'm ready," the younger one exhaled, throwing back his golden curls, gathered into a neat low ponytail. 26 seconds, he whispered under his breath. "Huh? I'm that fast?" Tsukuri said, as if bringing me back from a trance to reality. "Why yes," glancing at the younger one's appearance, I frankly admired him. And you can't say that he just looked like he ran a cross-country race. After a meal at a local cafe, we walked along a brightly sunlit street. Deidara told about his impressions, what he felt, looking at the chakra of passing ninja. People from distant lands, who gathered in one place, had their own special features regarding appearance and habits. The story did not exclude the power in each of them. All very different. Each had its own highlight. "And your student Kankuro is also a puppeteer, isn't he?" Tsukuri noted, sitting down on a free bench. I nodded, settling down next to him. "Have you seen his technique?" No, during the first stage of the exam, I wasn't familiar with the student's abilities at all. I scanned everyone, and this guy's strength is more similar to yours. It seems like you and him are the only ones in Konoha who have chakra threads. Speaking of the abilities of other young ninjas, I was struck by the depth of his reasoning. Could Deidara really determine such things so accurately? In this regard, he is the undisputed leader of all those I can remember. And I seem to be the only one here who can cause an explosion, the blonde added, sighing slightly. Is he upset? The exam organizers will never put me on other stages. I'd rather accept answer sheets than blow up the earth, he said with resentment in his voice. He pouted his lips so comically that I could hardly keep from laughing. Besides, Deidara was right. His strength is undoubtedly admirable. Any ninja with such data can safely become an examiner, but it must be taken into account that in the event of an emergency, the blast wave is no joke. The ringing voices of people running in one direction were heard. We looked at each other, already knowing that the exam was over. Two of my team members immediately ran up to me. Temari was shining brighter than the sun, already a few meters away from me, telling me what she had experienced. Somewhere behind, Gaara was lazily walking in the same direction. The children looked battered and exhausted, but happy. It seemed that everything had ended well for my three. I was almost smashed into a tree when the fair-haired girl literally swept me away, hugging me. "Senpai! Senpai!" female voices shouted behind me. Deidara was less lucky, 3 bodies pounced on his already fragile figure. Listening to my students, I didn't even notice how Tsukuri was taken away somewhere. It turned out that one team of ninja guarding the scroll was supposed to consist of 6 people. My 3 joined up with the local guys, Uchiha, Haruno, and Uzumaki. They were nearby, so I immediately remembered each of them. These were the people I remembered from the test exam. I almost immediately met them and their mentor, Hatake Kakashi. Standing in this company, I noticed the chemistry that had arisen between the children. The girls were whispering about something of their own, and Naruto was constantly brazenly pestering Gaara, who turned out to be extremely active in discussing who will win. Hatake spent all this time within the trees, carefully watching the guys' actions. According to him, they showed themselves to be a good team, who managed to take this test. Some time had passed. I still had no idea where Deidara was. I cared about my students' successes, but I had to know where the one I was thinking about was. Wandering the streets, I stomped towards the multi-story living room with all 6 children. The younger ones decided to sit in the room of the Sand Trio, and at the same time meet with the other teens that lived in the neighborhood. Kakashi had to leave early when one of the examiners called out to him. Left alone, I was in no hurry to return to the room, as I had a presentiment that Deidara was somewhere on the street. And so it was. Not far from the building, he was sitting on the branch of a tall tree, peacefully dangling his legs. The younger one seemed to be hiding from someone. "They've squeezed all the strength out of me," said the guy, who immediately came down to the ground. It seemed he had noticed my presence a long time ago. I just grinned at this, stroking my long hair that had become slightly disheveled due to the foliage. "Then let's go and take a break from everyone. You're exhausted too, aren't you?" "Oh, of course, yes." Having answered his own question, the younger one took a step towards me. "I managed to have lunch with my people, but if you haven't eaten, I'll still sit next to you." "I had lunch too," he answered immediately, lowering his gaze slightly. "They made me." "Forced?" The interlocutor immediately repeated in a cheerful voice. He laughed, probably comparing our similar situations with the students. "But now we have finally broken away from the younger ones and, taking advantage of the opportunity, I would like to take Deidara somewhere where he himself would like to go. It's too stuffy outside at this hour. Maybe we could sit somewhere cool, if you like," he suggested first, standing with his back to the blazing sun. I saw again how beautiful the iridescent golden hue of his hair was. The strands trembled slightly in the breeze, although it was so warm that its movement did not save me from the heat. "It's chilly in my room," I said, pushing the blonde man by the shoulder toward the hotel. I myself am not a fan of stuffy weather, so I wanted to stay here less and less with each passing minute. "You?" "Damn, loud," already whispering to himself, Deidara hesitantly followed me. Maybe I should have suggested a place with thick walls? I did so. They would have recovered there, cooling their bodies with cold drinks, but at the last moment Tsukuri decided to refuse, continuing to walk towards the hotel. Tsukuri's POV. "Hinata, Ino, we were close to solving it," someone yelled behind me. I looked around in confusion, seeing Haruno's interested gaze once again as she crawled out of the bushes. She grabbed her dark-haired friend by the hand, whose face instantly turned extremely red. "What's wrong with these girls, huh? Did they hear our conversation? Now are you sure who made the appointment with him in that letter?" Yamanaka rejoiced, winking at the others. "We've already seen them together twice today." "Is this how they openly discuss my personal life?" "A letter?" the elder asked, looking into my eyes with surprise. "So, now he is more interested in some note than in this situation?" "Later." "I'll tell you later," I whispered, dreaming of quickly running away from the middle of the street. "Master Sasori, is this true?" Temari had already spoken up, jumping down from a nearby tree. Even the Konoha member's new friend was also drawn into this. And these girls were hunting each other in the forest a couple of hours ago. I rolled my eyes, thinking back to yesterday's strange morning. We were surrounded by a crowd of young shinobi, who were looking at me and the red-haired man, as if they had caught the couple. On the one hand, they could have understood it that way, but I hope there was nothing unnecessary in our relationship with Sasori-san right now. Unnecessary, We're just going to him, what's the big deal, huh? Shippers, damn it. Deidara-senpai. We found you. Why didn't you tell me you were going on a date right away? Oh my god, I hear the voices of the girls from my village. Why are you so ashamed? Not having time to recover from all the blows of my favorable fate, I stupidly began to blush, frozen in the same place. Now no weather element would probably move me from this place. But Obito's face suddenly appeared in front of my face. "Girls, you jumped to conclusions," Uchiha said loudly. "I wrote the letter." "What?" They and I exclaimed at the same time. What is this man doing? Does he want to drive me into the grave? Looking at Sasori and me, Uchiha's black eyes flashed, and at the same moment they turned bloody. This is the first time I've seen such a pattern in the Sharingan. But why is he using this technique? What is the reason for that? Deidara, Obito said, his expression changing slightly. Now he seemed cold to me. The smile that had just shone on his face had now disappeared without a trace. But that wasn't what surprised me. Looking around, I realized that I was in the familiar corridor on the top floor of my hotel. Sasori-san was still standing next to me. "Did you just teleport us?" I asked, grabbing him by the shoulder and sharply bending him towards my face. "Do you think those girls attacked us or something? And why the hell did you lie to them about a simple note from my mom?" Hey, calm down," the brunette grinned, moving away a little. "I just gave them new ground for gossip. What's wrong with that? Let them think that I'm running after you." "What the?" "They were already ready to believe that you and Akasuna were together," the dark-haired man explained, leaning against the wall in a relaxed manner. But his gaze remained just as indifferent, emotionless. "Who thinks that Sasori-san and I are together?" I didn't know how to answer further. My thoughts were all jumbled up. As if a hurricane had passed through my head. I shut up. "Let them think what they want," Sasori suddenly answered. "The students still need to take a break from the difficult exam." The hint is clear, but why exactly should this topic bother teenagers? I was a little confused as to why Sasori-san remained completely calm. As if he often finds himself in this kind of situation. "To unwind, just like us," Obito added, now flashing his white teeth in a smile. "I suggest we all get together and have a drink today. By the way, it wasn't my idea. It was all Itachi's." "Just don't drag your relative into this," I hissed. "Do you want him to throw you out of the room tomorrow too?" "Tomorrow will be tomorrow," he winked in response, without changing his relaxed state. "Does Uchiha really find it amusing to piss me off? So, do you agree? I wouldn't want to leave you, Deidara, but I really have to go. The Hokage wants to see some of my clan to give them a task as usual. It will take some time, but I'll try." "Move already," I interrupted, feeling my eye twitch from nervousness. We were alone with Akasuna again. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes, slowly regaining the rest of my nerves. "Why does Uchiha irritate you?" "Huh?" He turned around and looked the man straight in the eyes. "Indeed, why?" "It seems nothing unusual. After Obito's words, the girls now probably believe that Uchiha is interested in me." He diverted their suspicions from Sasori-san to himself. "He's too weird," I squeezed out, moving a little closer. "He is attached to you no less than I am." I opened my eyes wide, peering into the gray-brown gleam of the large eyes that were so mercilessly drilling into my flushed face. What could his words mean? Does he guess that Obito is not indifferent to me? Well, no, that's just nonsense. Obito has a girlfriend. But his words and actions speak of something else. I don't know. I'm completely confused. "Let's go to my room," Sasori said after a short silence, reaching for my hand. He took it and led me to the door. My heart started pounding loudly again, even in my temples. Almost from the doorway, I started to explain myself. I told Akasuna everything that had happened between me and Uchiha, while wondering about this guy's intentions. He's strange. He's infuriating. He's like a threat that lurks behind the grin of a Sharingan bearer. I sincerely didn't understand him. And all because I believed Itachi's story about the great love that blossomed between Obito and Rin. I remember when she talked about her boyfriend, blushing noticeably. Apparently, she's genuinely in love with Uchiha. And I would be glad for their feelings, but I can't. I just can't. Sasori listened to me without interrupting. He remained as focused as usual. "I feel bad, Dana," I admitted, fiddling with the tip of my tail with my fingers. "I feel like I want to disappear again. I'm angry because of the constant strange looks and words. Uchiha also said something that could immediately piss me off. I could consider my appearance in Konoha a mistake, but I'm glad that I met you here." I said the last part a little quieter, but definitely sincerely. I don't know why I so abruptly cut off the negativity for something pleasant, but I suddenly felt calmer. And now, when I looked again at the person sitting opposite me, I really did feel better. I calmed myself down with the last words I had spoken, but the slight smile that appeared finally allowed me to breathe out with satisfaction. I smiled back, as if everything I had said earlier had been just thoughts. As if I hadn't said it out loud. "I don't know Obito very well. Maybe he's always like this? He also told me about when the brunette tried to find out why my lips were kissed. That incident in the park still haunted me. Obito looked like he was genuinely jealous, which he was trying to keep inside. Sasori-san, why did you say that he is attached to me as much as you are? It's quite obvious, the elder replied, it's enough to look at you with the way he looks. What about his Rin? Don't they love each other? Or is it just him, who doesn't love? No, I'm taking too much on myself. I'm just his new psychopathic acquaintance who's got an incomprehensible idea of himself. And he looks at me in a special way because I look too much like a girl. That's what I think. But for some reason he doesn't take into account that I'm not happy with it. Oh, forgive me, Sasori-san, I've worn you out with my useless thoughts. No, the second one cut in, moving slightly closer to me, I'm actually concerned about your experiences. But why? Sasori-san, instead of talking about something that interests you, I'm just whining now. The elder moved towards me and leaned over my body, lifting my head with his palms so that I would now be completely distracted by the man. You don't have to talk to me about just certain topics, Deidara. If something is bothering you, you can tell me right away, okay? Why yes. He is very close. I blush again, traitorously. I just don't think you like hearing that. It doesn't matter, because now you're saying this to me, not Obito. An epiphany immediately came to mind. I shouldn't care about Uchiha, because in my mind I always imagined Sasori-san next to me. He was the one who filled my heart, thoughts, mind. I knew it and felt it from the very first sight. I like Akasuna. And I am 100% sure of it. Thank you for being honest with me, the elder whispered, lightly stroking my bangs falling from my face. My soul was filled with a tremor that wanted to pour out on all of Sasori. I hugged him tightly, feeling his hands tremble slightly. I was very excited. But now my heart is not beating so fast, freeing me from mental torment. Part 7 My body seemed to be sinking under a layer of down blanket onto an equally soft mattress. My head was spinning slightly, and that was what made me twitch a little, slightly lifting my heavy head off the pillow. My hair was falling on my face, but I diligently brushed it in different directions to better see something strange in my bedroom. It was practically impossible to see anything, but I immediately made out the outline of Sasori-san. Rubbing my still sleepy eyes, I continued to examine. Akasuna was sitting on a chair almost opposite my bed and looking somewhere towards the entrance. What was wrong with him? Sasori-san. He turned sharply in my direction. Sleep, it's still very early, the elder whispered, lowering his hands onto his knees. But you, why are you here? I muttered, looking around. It seemed to be my bedroom. This time I hadn't confused the sleeping place. I'm looking after your safety. Huh? Security? What happened? Sasori smiled at me. I chuckled and sat down on the spot I had warmed, still wrapped in a blanket. I started to remember. It turned out that last night, Sasori-san, some other ninja and I had gone to a bar. We had drunk quite a bit there. More precisely, I was the only one of the two of us who drank a lot. I remember that Akasuna even tried to stop me from getting excited, which for some reason annoyed me, and I ran away from prying eyes to another corner of the establishment. I remember some of the people I had met, naturally, their names had slipped my mind almost immediately. And when I returned, I found Kakashi sitting in the corner of my company. He was discussing the plot of the book he was holding open in his hand with Itachi. I flew up from behind, grabbing him by the shoulders. He, not paying attention, continued to vigorously discuss the actions of the main character. I almost pressed my face to the gray-haired man's ear, reading it carefully and blushing more and more with each word I read. It was a downright pornographic torture. Only then did I notice Naruto Uzumaki approaching me, who was also secretly looking at the pages. Itachi looked at him with a raised eyebrow and he, realizing that it was an ass, abruptly disappeared from sight. Oh, that teenager. I laughed out loud. The book was snatched from the owner's hands by Uchiha and immediately closed in front of my face. This gesture hinted to me that I was not yet mature enough for such a thing. But I didn't care. I continued drinking, listening to various tales from Guy, sitting between Obito and someone else. And later I got into a conversation with Rin, who was sitting in the same company with several kunoichi. She looked very cute, wrapped in a cloak with the Uchiha clan sign. It seemed that what could have happened that made Sasori-san decide to stay here with me at night. I don't remember anything else. You won't tell me? Did I arrange a showdown with someone? I wasn't feeling my best as I began to imagine the possible scenarios. You really don't have any idea, Sasori stated, his expression changing. What are you talking about? Even a fool could understand that Sasori didn't want to say more, but he couldn't avoid answering. He sat down closer to me on the very edge of the bed and looked at me, slightly thoughtful. They tried to slip you an aphrodisiac. I almost cursed it out loud, but bit my tongue in time. My eyes filled with tears, but more from shock than from pain. You didn't drink it, Akasuna finished immediately, anticipating the question, and later decided to get to the hotel yourself, without telling anyone. I was looking for you, and when I found you, 3 ninja from the bar were already following you. I knew they wanted to do this from the first day you arrived in this village. The red-haired man fell silent. I looked into his eyes, trying to collect my thoughts, but the headache that had suddenly arisen prevented me from concentrating. Although, the reason for his strange expression was clear to me. I understood from just one look at Dana what exactly those people wanted from me. It was too familiar to me. It felt bad. I hated the feeling I was experiencing again, which was now almost completely overwhelming. Almost. It's a little easier now, because there's a person nearby whom I can trust. They know you're here, and they know what room you're in, Sasori continued hesitantly, lowering his eyes. I won't leave your side. Thank you, came out very quietly. I met his gaze and awkwardly lifted the corners of my mouth, hinting at a smile. I can't smile, I just can't. These people, they're terrible. I very carefully touched Sasori-san's cool hand and moved a little closer to his body. You are cold, I noted, pulling the elder one towards me. I pulled him close, hoping to warm him with the warmth of my body. I really wanted to do that. And also, I wanted to feel the softness of his lips again, but I stopped myself. Now is not the time. I can't do that now, still in a kind of trance. Deidara, what are you? Sasori was taken aback when I pulled him towards me and we fell together onto the soft bed. I continued to hold him, covering both of us with the blanket with my other hand. You shouldn't freeze because of me. Everything is fine, he answered, moving away slightly, but I did not let him get out of bed, holding him tightly to me. Get some sleep, Sasori-san, I begged, realizing how exhausted the man's mind was right now. He cared about me, no. He saved me. I don't know why I'm so stupid as to get drunk, getting myself shot at again. I guess I just felt protected by the man back then. Now I want him to relax. To stop worrying about me, even just a little bit. I won't be able to sleep, the second one sighed, hugging me back with both arms. You don't know what those shinobi are capable of. What am I capable of? Sasori-san, I can defend myself. They have the technique of subjugation. And even the power of the drug that was poured into your glass would not have changed the outcome. It is unlikely that you would have been able to escape, especially in that intoxicated mind. I remained silent, settling my head more comfortably on the elder's shoulder. Submission, this damn submission, again. I recalled more than one memory from the past when I was even more vulnerable than I am today. I even fell into a trap a couple of times, and until now it was a miracle that I was not raped by one of these characters. Since childhood. I have been faced with this since a very young age. Dana, I whispered, examining the light fabric of his outerwear, you will listen to me, right? What's happened? I just remembered again. Sasori pulled back slightly to lift my eyes and look into them. He lifted my head by the chin. The first man I killed remains my worst nightmare. He used his technique to subjugate me, even though I was only 8 at the time. Deidara. Please listen. I didn't understand what I was doing. He was squeezing my hair hard and pushing into my mouth. Disgusting. And very painful. Then he started to undress me and I was able to break free. I tried to run away, but he threatened that if I didn't lie down under him, he would deal with my whole family. And I was able to blow him up because I was afraid for them. I was afraid that someone might find out about that night, so I hid from people for a long time, hiding in the form of another person. I lived like this for about 2 months until my mother found me. You told her? No. At that time I already had a good command of the technique that erases memory. I applied it to everyone who knew me. For them, it was as if I had never disappeared. But this technique has a downside: I myself remembered everything. So I tried to forget. Akasuna hugged me tighter, running his palms over my shirt gently. I closed my eyes, trying to even out my breathing, which had gotten out of whack a few minutes ago. I don't know why I told him that. Why did I even remember the pain buried somewhere deep in my memory? It was all because of that damned technique. What would have become of me today if it weren't for Akasuna? A quiet knock behind the curtained window. Sasori tensed up, but didn't stop stroking me soothingly. What is this? Looking towards the source of the sound. Don't pay attention, answered the second. As long as I'm around, no one will come in here. Only now did I sense that the entire space had originally been enveloped in the red sand chakra. It was as if I was under an invisible dome. Outside of it, I could sense the presence of uninvited shinobi. Sasori-san had told me the truth. Those I had not noticed while heading to the inn really wanted to visit me. I looked at the elder, trusting him that I was truly completely safe. Akasuna didn't take his eyes off me. He looked so tenderly and reverently, lightly stroking my hair, falling down to my shoulder. Goosebumps ran through my body when his fingertips began to wander along my wrist. Sasori's hands became warm. Just like I remember them on the night I spent in his bed. Sleep, Deidara, was the last thing the man said, after which I realized that I was falling asleep abruptly and quickly, as if I was passing through an unknown sleep technique. Akasuna's POV. I put Deidara to sleep, holding him close for a while. This 16-year-old man, what hasn't he endured in his life? Now I understand his state much better in relation to those who look at him with strange interest. But until today's revelation, I couldn't imagine that the boy was so deeply traumatized by a forbidden past. I want to protect him. I want to follow him, to protect him. That's why I'm here now. He will sleep very soundly and will not even notice my absence for some time. I quietly got out of bed, looking at the curtained window. Sasori-san, Tsukuri muttered before opening his eyes and stretching sweetly. Did you get enough sleep? I asked, unable to hide my joy at seeing him awaken. He will never know what happened that night. I dealt with everyone who dared to try to harm my Deidara. It seems so, probably, the fair-haired man answered, still muttering, I need to go to the girls this morning. Their mentor called me to discuss the next test. It will probably be some kind of duel, right? Right. I couldn't stop staring at the younger boy, still thinking about our conversation at night. I smiled, but my soul felt empty. He told me his terrible secret, which made me angry deep inside. Once again, I was convinced that the attraction to Deidara hadn't diminished. It only grew. I wanted to kiss him, but even though he was not indifferent to me, I couldn't make a mistake. I didn't want to be the one who would remind Deidara of the past. What are you thinking about? I jerked, immediately returning to real time. About you, I answered without a hint of embarrassment, looking with satisfaction into the blue eyes that had widened slightly in surprise. What about me? Did I do something wrong? Yes. I got drunk and dragged you to sleep next to me. Sorry. Now I was surprised, although I didn't show it. Sasori-san, come with me to the students? Surely your children have missed you too. Why would they? I heard from my people that Kankuro became friends with the local Kiba, who has a cute puppy. Want to see it? I, involved in the company of the gathered sensei from different villages, listened to the discussion about the next test. Some wanted to start it right away, but others, whose students were physically injured after the fight in the second test, insisted on waiting a couple more days until they recovered. It was decided to start tomorrow at dawn. When it came to talking about who would fight whom, I no longer listened to the words. They were clearly spoken in my ears, but I lost track of time, looking only at Deidara from the whole crowd. He, sitting on a chair, openly ignored the process, hovering somewhere in his thoughts. But as soon as a question sounded from someone, touching on Tsukuri as the first examiner, the younger one immediately answered willingly, judiciously. "Sensei," Uchiha Sasuke called out as he approached the blonde. He, crossing his legs at the same time, turned to the teenager, behind whom stood a pink-haired girl. "Phew, I thought it was Itachi," the former examiner chuckled. "Yes? It's still unknown when the third test will be?" "Tomorrow morning," the demolition man replied, "so get a good rest today." Haruno blushed, covering her face behind her partner's shoulder. "Thank you, Deidara-kun," the girl said and pulled Sasuke along with her. Tsukuri watched the couple go, not hiding his satisfied grin. "Oh, this first love," the woman who was part of the examiners sang dreamily. "Did you see how Uchiha Jr. defended his girlfriend yesterday at the exam? They would have made a great couple." "What can't be said about me and my husband," the second one butted in. "We also took the exam to become a genin about 15 years ago." He was always talking loudly and a lot, attracting opponents. "So I almost killed him myself then. And it's a shame, because now I have to put up with his chatter to this day." The assembled hall was filled with laughter. Deidara rolled his eyes almost imperceptibly, hiding a smirk. He rose from his warm seat and decided to be the first to leave the meeting place, grabbing my hand along the way and, almost like Sakura Uchiha, leading me away from everyone. "We'll go tell the students about the decision," he said as a parting shot, without looking back. We were walking towards a familiar park, where the future kunoichi from the stone should be along with my team. Along the way, I could already hear Kenkuro's laughter. It was as if he was running from someone from side to side. This was accompanied by female cries that asked him to stop immediately, before some Akamaru kicked his ass. Strange. Deidara walked slightly ahead, slightly slowing his fast pace. Now he led me calmly, and later he let go of my hand altogether. "Do you hear the barking?" "It's that same dog," Tsukuri said, smiling. "Do you like animals?" "Of course. I've been making them out of clay since I could walk. I even throw clay animals in battle. I just love them madly. I even think that if I were born a human in another clan, it would definitely be the Inuzuka clan." I let out a quiet laugh. If only Deidara knew the face he made when he told me his thoughts. He looked like a cute kitten that I would keep for myself. "Have you ever thought about moving to another village?" I asked for some reason. What? Why? Oh my god, why did I just blurt that out? Just a moment ago I had a picture of Deidara in his other ninja uniform, the hidden sand uniform. The younger one paused, thinking about my question. "You know, Sasori-san. I would like to live closer to your house." My eyes widened. What did this guy just say? "Senpai. I thought you weren't coming," jumping up to us, the girl in the stone outfit bowed, greeting us. "Kiba-kun just arrived, and as Akamaru rushed at your student, Sasori-sensei. He's going to bite his hand off right now." Gaara emerges from the bushes. He is clearly stressed and constantly looking around. "What's wrong with him?" Deidara asked, looking at the sand boy with a suspicious expression on his face. "The thing is that Akamaru liked Gaara," the girl answered. "He's been running after him, and Kankuro-kun decided to save his brother, which made Akamaru angry, and now he's running after his elder brother." "What children?" I hissed, approaching the fluffy subject of discussion along with everyone else. "Akamaru, stop," I said. "You're going to scare everyone away." The boy with red stripes on his cheeks barked. I was ready to see a beast growling somewhere from around the corner at my charge, but a tiny light-colored dog with miniature fangs flew out to meet us. Deidara laughed at my surprised look. "Sasori-san, this is the partner of Kiba's that I was talking about," the demolition man tried to say clearly, suppressing his laughter. "Cute little dog," Kankuro continued, running around the nearest trees. "Hey, idiot," Temari had already started to growl. "This is not an ordinary puppy, remember? This is a ninja partner. He's going to eat you right now if you don't stop teasing him." Kankuro jumped up to us and in a jump reached his little brother, who hid behind my back. Sweet Akamaru deftly jumped after him and the unexpected happened. The dog flew right into Gaara's vessel. For the first time I saw how much the sand ninja's face changed, almost turning blue from shock. The guys laughed, but not Gaara, because no one else knew until that moment how much my student was afraid of dogs. The whole crowd of us tried to revive Gaara, who had fainted. And when we succeeded, a happy Akamaru ran up and, wagging his tail, licked the boy's head. "Oh no, he passed out again," Hinata said. "Move away," Naruto shouted from the crowd. Hyuga was taken aback, blushing in a second. "Naruto-kun, what are you doing here?" "I will bring my friend back to our world," the blonde confidently declared and used the transformation technique, becoming a cute girl, a naked girl. Deidara gasped silently, stepping back, as he was standing closest to Uzumaki. And the latter, pleased that everyone appreciated the teenager's technique, confidently approached Gaara and whispered his name in his ear. The red-haired man, immediately coming to his senses, sharply stepped back a few meters with a squeal. "You again, Uzumaki?" Gaara hissed, covering his eyes with his hand. "Stop following me every minute." The technique was immediately destroyed when an extremely angry Temari hit Naruto on the head with her fan. "What have you done, moron? Look, the boys all fainted because of you," she barked, pointing at the other guys lying nearby. "You should at least be ashamed of your mentors. Have you completely lost your fear, Uzumaki?" The unusual situation ended when Deidara managed to bring everyone to their senses by throwing a clay bird into the air, which exploded with a piercing roar. Now everyone was out of the blackout as if it had never happened. "Not bad, Tsukuri," Itachi grinned, suddenly appearing out of nowhere. Obito stood next to him. "I see you spend much more time with the children than their mentor," the second one quipped, continuing to stare strangely at Deidara. Part 8 Tsukuri's POV. "You wanted to talk to me, so why are you silent?" I asked, nervously fiddling with the sleeve of the green fabric. I looked at Obito, raising an eyebrow slightly. "What's wrong with the Uchiha? Why has he been staring at me so strangely for the last couple of minutes? Just answer calmly, okay?" "What?" I was even more surprised. "I want to know the truth, about that man you kissed." My jaw dropped in surprise. I leaned my palm against the cold wall, suffering an invisible blow to my brain. "What kiss are you talking about? I haven't been with anyone since that night in a stranger's bedroom." "Don't you know what I'm talking about?" A grin flashed in the dark alley where Obito and I stood opposite each other. "Remember that letter from your mother? And our conversation?" "Yes," I answered through clenched teeth. Involuntarily tensing up, "Speak directly, don't waste my time." "You answered me then that you kissed. And your lips were proof of that. So what?" I was already starting to get angry. I sincerely didn't understand what had suddenly gotten into this man. After that incident in the park, we had crossed paths several times and it seemed as if there had been no strange conversation between us. Obito looked completely normal, so why did he touch on this difficult topic for my nurse again? "Who were you with that night anyway?" the elder one asked bluntly, taking 2 steps towards me. "Are you going to threaten me?" I quipped, extending my palm forward, touching his abs and stopping the guy who wanted to get closer. "No." "Then why are you looking like that?" I wasn't going to answer that question. What did it matter to him? "Deidara," he whispered with a hint of resentment, trying not to be distracted by another topic, "please tell me." My eyes widened in shock at what was happening. So this guy dragged me out here, away from everyone, to get an answer to this stupid question? Was he serious? Why the fuck would he even care? "I won't tell," I said sternly, crossing my arms over my chest. Obito sighed, looking up at the soft blue sky that was shining without a single cloud today. "You didn't lie about it," it sounded more like a statement than a question from his lips. I looked questioningly at Uchiha. "You know, Deidara, you've made me think only about you since the first day we met." "Eh?" Black eyes looked into mine and struck me with the depth of their thoughts. I literally felt Obito state, hesitantly stepping back. But my path was almost immediately interrupted, because I felt the same cold wall with my back. "Stop looking at him like that," I said, unable to tear my gaze away from his dark, abyssal eyes. His expression was a little scary. No, more like just alarming. I didn't know what to expect from the Uchiha next. If I come a little closer, promise to stay put? What the hell are you doing, so weird? I couldn't stand it. Come here, I won't bite. Obito came closer to me, leaning slightly over me. I saw you leaving your room with Akasuna today, the dark-haired man said, sending goosebumps down my body. I shrank back, continuing to stare silently at the face opposite. So what? I blurted out, blushing. I can invite anyone I want, can't I? I'm jealous. Have you gone crazy, Uchiha? I said, a little louder than usual. How long has he been coming to you? The elder one began to speak more quietly. Almost in a whisper. I flinched as I felt a keen gaze on my lips. And you can't say that you kissed the same way as after the first night at the hotel, he continued, coming up close. Now your lips are the same as usual. I noticed it right away. But does this mean that Sasori's kisses are now a little lower? Obito touched my clothes, slightly lowering the fabric, revealing a neck that was bare almost to the collarbones. What are you doing? I tried to push Uchiha away, but suddenly I was pressed back against the wall, as if an invisible wave had hit my body. I looked into Uchiha's eyes with undisguised shock, catching the changes in his pupils. Sharingan? Almost immediately tearing my gaze away, I realized that I was in a completely different place than where I had been standing a second ago. There was endless darkness all around, and I was still standing near the cold surface, from which I wanted to jump back as quickly as possible, but this way I would stand even closer to Uchiha. He stood a couple of centimeters away from me, just as brazenly looking into my eyes. For a moment, I felt like a frightened, defenseless kitten, cornered by a large dog. Obito, get lost nicely, I hissed, trying to breathe normally, but intermittent sighs overcame my body. I traitorously continued to blush, because the elder lowered his hand a little lower, revealing a view of my shoulders. I can't see it, he said in surprise, still studying my skin. Do you want to find hickeys? I got angry, but asked very restrainedly. He made it clear that I was right. Now he became even more tense. What's wrong with you, Deidara? Instead of giving him a good punch in the face, you just keep standing there? I don't recognize myself. If that's what you want, I'll strip naked. Finally pushing Uchiha a couple of steps away from himself, I don't have anything on that you're looking for. Is it true? I growled, preparing to attack for real. I was tired of this game. I'll rip your eyes out right now if you don't move me back from your damn technology. Akasuna must be gentle with you, since he hasn't left his mark on your body yet? Are you doing this again? He pressed himself against my body again, but now he began to touch it, burying his fingers in my hair. I like your character, Obito grinned, continuing to caress and gradually pull off my outerwear, leaving me in a light, almost completely unbuttoned shirt. Every time you get angry, you get madly excited. Do you even hear me? I was taken aback, not giving up trying to break free, but the technique I was in now did not give me the right to stop the process. I just continued to endure and hope that Obito would not go further. Just one look from you makes me hard, he whispered in my ear, now touching my body with his lips. He pressed me against the wall persistently and powerfully, his hands wandering over my body. He put his fingers under my clothes. You like it, right? Obito asked, caressing my neck with his tongue and leaving a small mark behind. Has Sasori already had you from behind? Or did you just jerk each other off? I'll kill you, Uchiha. I squeezed out with difficulty, almost going limp in the caress. It's as if I'm drunk with the brunette's touches. All this is like a dream. The guy's palm squeezed my buttocks powerfully and pushed my body towards him. I felt that Obito was already quite excited. His organ was dreaming of being freed from excess clothing. When Obito threw me onto the big bed, I didn't wonder where she came from in the almost impenetrable darkness. I only cared about why the hell I wasn't resisting. At all. And I cared about the fact that my mind wasn't at all against giving itself to this shinobi right now. You don't know how much you angered me with your behavior, Uchiha whispered, throwing off his outerwear, then immediately lifted my shirt, continuing to touch my slightly protruding ribs with his tongue. I felt hot, which made my breathing even more difficult. Every time I came to Rin after that, I fucked her like the last bitch. Stop, I could only utter the word, almost getting lost in space. How can you talk about her like that? I want you, Obito said, pressing his lips to mine as his body began to move beyond the patience to take over. Deidara, say my name. And no. Please, he caressed between her legs with one hand, while the other again squeezed the long hair at the back of her head. Let go, please, I whispered, still having some sanity left. I promise to be no less careful with you than Akasuna. Please, just say my name. Just once. I didn't sleep with him, not even once, I said, closing my eyes as Obito penetrated the fabric of my underwear. Really? So he didn't touch you here? He ran it along the entire length, starting to jerk off slowly. And no. You're lying. Uchiha turned me around, pulling my pants down, and then penetrated me with 2 fingers, generously moistened with saliva. It happened so suddenly that I didn't have time to think of anything to prevent my fate. No. I'm not lying, I hissed, clutching the pillow with my hands, feeling how the fingers began to move inside. Deeply and intensely. The elder sat on my hips, having first slightly raised my pelvis. I couldn't break free, even if I wanted to. But the desire to stop this, for some reason, was fading. The nagging pain was quickly replaced by a forbidden pleasure. But this thought left my head as quickly as the fingers, which were replaced by something larger and hotter. Obito began to plunge the head, barely holding back. He pressed on my waist, then continued to caress my buttocks, squeezing greedily. You're so tight, Uchiha said with difficulty, enjoying my sighs, which were getting louder with each passing minute. The guy entered carefully, giving me the opportunity to get used to it and stretch out enough. But it still wasn't enough. I was burning from the inside, but my desire was growing with it. I want more. I want it deeper. Arching my back even further, Obito increased the pace, holding back even harder. His cock entered almost completely, pounding the pleasure point. I couldn't hold back the moans that escaped, which I mumbled into the pillow. Deidara, he muttered, his heavy breathing burning my back. He continued to cover my body with hickeys and bites, speeding up even more. It's hard, I mumbled, not so sharply. Don't like it? Say my name out loud and I'll slow down, he mocked, spanking my ass. I couldn't say anything else, burying my head in the down pillow. Come on, Deidara, he chuckled, seeing my state, just one word. Faster, finish it already. I blurted out, unable to continue clinging to the last thread of dignity. I am astonished at myself to the depths of my soul. And at the same time disappointed that things have gone this far. Stubborn. It's so exciting, Uchiha said, pounding even harder into my almost limp body. I felt like I wanted to come, but this man didn't let me touch him. He held my hands above my head, mercilessly pushing his big cock to the base. I couldn't take it first and spilled, almost collapsing without strength. Obito grabbed me and continued to impale me. It lasted longer than I could have imagined. Enough, this is too hard. You're so sexy, he smiled back, grabbing my hair and pulling it painfully towards himself. Enough, enough. I opened my eyes. I was lying in the same bed next to a sleeping Obito. Looking around, I realized that I was most likely in his room. It's the same hotel, right? How much time has passed? It was dark and 2:30 in the morning. I quickly got out of bed, starting to pull the clothes scattered around my naked body. It was hard. It was heavy. My back was pulling unpleasantly, and my limbs were aching. There was no time to think about what had happened to me. From the moment I woke up, I just wanted to find Sasori-san as soon as possible. I needed to see him. With each passing second, fear was growing stronger. I was afraid to meet Sasori-san's gaze again. My legs were buckling just from the thought of what the elder would think of me. And what would I answer him? I don't know how long ago the Sharingan technique disappeared, but the fact remains I woke up in the Uchiha's bedroom after everything that happened between us. This is not a dream. This is fucking reality. Akasuna's POV. I admired how Deidara, surrounded by the younger ones, was sweetly communicating with the girls, showing how majestic his art of creating clay figures was. Although they were powerful explosives, their beauty amazed anyone. This great man is still very young, but his strength already goes beyond the boundaries of my mind. Tsukuri is an excellent shinobi. And, surprisingly for his character, he is affectionate with small children. The locals, who looked like 5-year-olds, ran up to him to take a closer look at his long hair. He smiled, laughed with them, gave each of them a warm look. But it ended too quickly. Deidara came up to me and said that he would be back soon. From that moment on, he simply disappeared. I searched for Tsukuri all day. In vain. I couldn't even sense his chakra. It was as if he had vanished. Returning to the hotel, I continued scanning the space. And again, nothing. Why am I going into the building, knowing that Deidara is not in it? I just walked, having no idea when my nightmare will end. I was more worried about him than was permissible. Where is he now? What happened to him? Is he even alive? Stopping in front of the door to the room, which until now belonged to Tsukuri, I stared blankly at one point. What's that sound? Is someone awake at this hour? Turning my head to the right, I froze. In front of me stood a breathless Deidara. He was holding his sweater in his hands and pressing it to his chest. You. Disheveled hair. A hastily put on shirt, almost falling off one shoulder. Reddened skin on his exposed neck. Flaming cheeks, and a wild look. He looked into my eyes as if he had seen death itself. Deidara, what's wrong with you? I said, moving slightly, but the younger one jumped back, clutching the clothes he was holding in his hands even tighter. Sorry. I promised to come back right away. But I don't want to be in this place anymore, he said in a trembling tone and guiltily lowered his head, closing his frightened eyes. I moved decisively towards the young man. Who did this to you, Deidara? Dana, stopping me with just one look. Blue eyes shone in the dark corridor like a second moon. I gazed at them, fascinated, dreaming of getting closer, but something stopped me against my will. Did Obito do this? Deidara twitched, and from his expression I realized with horror that he was right. The younger one touched his bitten lips with a trembling hand and whispered something. For a moment I caught a glow around the guy, which increased and quickly spread throughout the space. This is the same technique, of erasing memory?